Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the show today. We're going to be getting into some pretty interesting news here. What is the date? It's almost the end of March. What is this like the 27th or something? I think it's the
It
27th.
is.
Yeah,
Well, for you, it's the 28th,
it
but
is.
yes,
It is. But I live in the future,
that's right.
as you know. That's right. Yeah, no, it's going to
What
be
if
interesting stuff we have to talk about, guys. Do keep tomorrow. We have our normal comic book show. But on the Wednesday, I will try to see if I can't do something with the guys on Discord. But I'm actually being dragged on a vacation week or a few days anyway with my wife to Euphuin. So,
drag
yeah, well. I don't have much
with your
choice in the
lovely wife?
matter, you know. It's one of those swanky places too. Ugh.
Uh-oh. That's
Enjoy.
right
Go
when
to
Chester kicks
onsen.
in.
Relax.
Yeah, I will, but you know how they get, Ben.
Hey, I always enjoy my time off, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Mm.
Well, whatever. But I'm going to try to do something. It'll be offline, so we won't have the Wednesday show. And I will be back for the Thursday drone recorded though. So the only, I will see if I can't do something with those guys offline, but I won't be able to do it online because I'll be in a little swanky hotel. It's not even a hotel. There, how would you describe the ryokan, Ben? I mean, I don't know,
I mean,
like a
it's like good.
I don't know, like a bed and breakfast. I don't know. That's not good enough.
Host not a hostel. I
No, that's
forget.
not that either. It's like imagine someone had a private house, like in the old Japanese style houses, and each room is very, very nice, and you're taken care of by the family. It's kind of like going and living in a. It's kind of like a bed and breakfast, but it's swankier. And not even. I don't mean money wise. Of course, they can be expensive, but I mean just in the direct treatment you get. It's kind. I don't know. We don't really have an equivalent in the West. But
Mm.
I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of them. You know, they give me these little yukata robe things, and my dick's hanging out all the time because it doesn't fit. You know, it's not really what I envision, Ben.
I'm just saying a
Um,
vacation's a vacation.
That's
So
fair.
Even your penis needs a vacation from pants, Chester. Come on.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Although I do like this is a different one we're going to, but I do like the one in the winter though, because they have a private onsen. They're like these stone sculpted, like dragon sculpture. Onsen's like a hot bath, right? Hot spring bath, in the room, and you can look out on the snow covered mountains of Euphuin. It's pretty nice actually. I don't mind that, but it's not snowing, so you know. Anyway, beside that, how was your weekend, Ben?
work's pretty busy. My son just got his red stripe belt in Taekwondo, so he's pretty
Nice.
excited about that. And my daughter tried cheerleading camp for the first time this weekend. Didn't really like it that much, but we encourage her to try new things. So she's just going to go back to gymnastics class and continue having fun doing her cartwheels and stuff.
Sure. Yeah. No, I wouldn't imagine cheerleader camp would be fun. I can't imagine that. I
Well,
was well,
try it, and we're encouraging, but
no, you should. You should. You're
oh,
right. But you know, Ben, I was a football player. Yeah. And the cheerleaders are for us. I mean, they were literally created for us. So I have intimate and deep knowledge of cheerleaders.
Oh boy,
Yeah. Yeah.
the entendres today.
Yeah.
Oof.
Well, and the thing is, though, Thunder, I wouldn't suggest that you let your daughters grow up to be cheerleaders,
Why not?
because they're kind of slutty. Just so you know. But that was. Did anyone catch my cowboy joke? That was a cowboy joke. Anybody?
Yeah, I heard it.
Thank you.
I heard it. It
Thank
was
you.
and
there.
It was
if
well
you think
crafted a half a
football,
second before it came out. It was awesome. No, I guess I'm not hitting on hit. I'm not hitting today. Damn it.
nope,
How was
nope.
your weekend, Thunder?
Swell. My weekend was swell. It was my cousin's birthday. My cousin's also my wife's best friend.
Ah,
So me and the wife and her mother. So my other cousin, she's my second cousin.
yeah.
So my two cousins, her mother and her boyfriend, husband, and then one of my other cousins from the other side of my family
Hmm.
all went out to dinner. Uh, Other than that, it's been a pretty boring weekend. I'm trying to think, did I do anything else? No, pretty boring weekend. I'm kind of waiting for stuff to start really opening up because winter does this thing around here
Hmm.
where it goes away for one day and everybody gets all excited, and then it's like, ha, you thought, and then it's back for 3 more weeks, and it just crushed comes in. It was snowing yesterday, like
Yeah.
that's what old man winter does around here. He likes to screw with us. He
Well,
toys with us a little bit.
every
Yeah,
year it's like that.
yeah, toys with us.
Oh goodness.
So I'm waiting for him to decide if he's done for the foreseeable future, so I can actually go out and do things without my wife freezing to death. See, I don't get cold; I'm fine,
Hmm.
but she just can't take the cold at all, not
It's
to any degree.
it's psychological.
I tell her that all the time. It's in her head,
It's in
all the
there.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the latest I've ever seen snow, I think, was May.
Latest I've ever seen it here was July 1st.
Oh
It
wow.
snowed one year, and I said, "This is ridiculous. This is utterly preposterous." But it happened.
Yeah.
I was
Well,
there.
got me beat. I don't think I've seen anything even into June. How about you, Ben? You come from the wily northern winds. You ever seen snow past May?
Yeah, I mean, back when I lived in like Vermont and stuff like that, right? You could see some pretty late winters. But now, I've been in Texas for most of my adult life. I mean, the coldest I would get was like back living in Psyche when But the thing was, is like that was different because it was on the coast, so
True.
it wouldn't really snow. It would just get like icy and stuff, right, and wet and cold.
Yeah, but
Um,
I know what you're saying, Ben. But you should stop lying to the people. You don't live in Texas. You live in Austin.
I live well, I mean, yeah, you're technically correct, but that is still technically a part of Texas. You know.
Yes,
Yeah,
you're their
Yeah.
redheaded stepchild. I'm pretty sure.
Though our most famous commentator Jeff Ward keeps saying that we should declare independence and separate out. So
I
You
love it.
should. I think you
I
should.
love that
Yeah,
plan. Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, the great state of Austin. That'd be fun.
that's
Actually,
right.
it'd be
City
fun.
state.
You know,
What's wrong with city states? What? That is weird how we don't have city states anymore. Really, like there's a
well,
couple out there in the world, but by and
yeah,
large, they all got gobbled up.
they did. They did. Of course, I jest though. Actually, if I went to Texas, one of the places I would definitely visit would be Austin.
Oh yeah, I'm
Yeah, I understand. It's actually quite a fun town, and they got some great food over there.
and great music,
Oh,
and you're a music guy.
I am.
I've always
It's
been
true.
partial to San Antonio myself. I don't know why. I always liked the town. Every time I've been there, I've had a good time,
Well,
and I have some
I'm
who
sure
lives
there's a
there.
lot of good places down in Texas.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's
Well,
cool actually that it's culturally different.
and that's one of the nice things about being in Austin is like we can go to events in San Antonio pretty easily.
mhm.
Beck and I do that on a fairly regular basis. We'll go to like comedy events and stuff up in San Antonio. It's a very reasonable drive.
Mm, you know, but there's a bunch of places in America I still want to go. I do believe I think the Salt Lick restaurant is in Texas, isn't it?
It's like right down the street from me.
Oh my
Like
God,
we
dude. Oh
we
my
go there
God.
regularly to get barbecue.
Oh, I swear to God, I'm punching you through the internet right now. Can you feel
I'm
it?
saying.
That was an
Yeah,
uppercut. Damn
it's
it.
got amazing barbecue
Yes, it
and
does, dude. God.
brisket and sausage and stuff, right? Yeah, I mean, like we do that all the time.
Ah, that's just like he's just leaving scar marks on there. Uh,
I can hear that.
yeah,
Sounds
I,
like you're being sliced.
yeah. Well, I've gotten pretty good at using the old barrel, the stand-up barrel, to
Mhm.
make Kansas City style spare ribs. I've gotten pretty good at that. They're not bad. They're not bad. Otherwise, I just don't have the equipment to pull off really. Like I can't do a brisket. Can't do that.
Right.
Can't do. I do pulled pork a little bit, but it's not as good as it should be. I just don't have the equipment. I just don't have it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's really nice to watch too because it's a traditional place. So they get like a bunch of like special like lumber like delivered to them on a regular basis. You can see the stacks of it outside. They use it and stuff, and there is a very like mesquite smell to the whole
Hmm.
place, right? Because they're just basically smoking and barbecuing like constantly, like
Yeah.
all the time, stuff. And they'll have live music events and stuff. And one of the great things that we love going there is it's right outside the Round Rock Express, the baseball stadium near us. Like again, this is like 2 miles away from us. Like it's very close. We go there all the time. Um, but they've got a great like outdoor area for kids, and when the weather's nice here, just take the kids. They go run around and play, and we get great barbecue. It's super awesome.
Yeah, no, I would love it. I'd be there all the time. I gained like 100 pounds easy. The actual sad thing is I almost because I've never been to Austin, but I almost had an opportunity because I was on the Eastern Circuit doing my thing. I think I was playing. Was I with Two Step or maybe I was with the Machine at that time? Maybe it was the Machine. And because I wasn't I'm just a saxophone player, so I wasn't in charge of anything. Right, I was just there. But anyway, we were doing the Eastern Circuit, and I think they had gotten an offer to do the Chitlin Circuit, which yes, it's a real thing. I'm not joking. It's called the Chitlin Circuit, and that one goes across, east to west across the South, and it ends in Austin. That's the last spot is over in Austin. So it's a long circuit, right? That's quite a distance. What is that? 1,000 miles, Ben? Might be more. It's a lot.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head, but yeah, it's a lot.
It is a lot. But they didn't take it because we ended up going over to Britain and meeting Pink Floyd and stuff like that. So, which was probably cooler. But the reason why is because at that time, this was back when ZZ Top was really popular in Texas, but they hadn't had that American tour that made them, worldwide, right? And they were on the circuit. And I really wanted to play with ZZ Top. Even back then, I knew who they were, right? But we didn't do it. Oh well.
No luck.
I missed my opportunity to meet the long-bearded men. And oh well.
Does have a very long beard.
Yeah, he does. Well, I mean, Billy's still playing. You still see Billy doing all the time. I don't know about the other two are doing, but Billy plays all the time. I don't know if you guys ever watched Daryl's house. Uh, uh, Daryl Hall. Daryl and Hall and Oates. Remember those guys?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Great singer, Daryl Hall, and now that he's free, he's even better. My God, that guy's got an amazing voice. But he was doing his own thing for a little while on YouTube, just for fun, I guess, and then MTV picked it up. But he gets a lot of the old timers in there, and they'll just jam out together, and they'll eat some food, like invite some chef, and they'll have some cool lunch together. It's a really neat show if you ever watched Daryl's house. But he had Billy on there a couple times, I think. The best one, though, was the OJs. Oh, those guys are old, but they can chirp, man. Oh my God. Really, really good singers. I know people usually kind of lean toward the Temptations when it comes to that kind of group, but man, OJ's any day.
Still alive? Wait a minute.
Yeah, I know, dude. Yeah.
How
And they're
old are they? They
still
gotta be like in their
killing
late
it.
80s, 90s. They gotta be up there.
Well,
Whew.
they had like T-Bone up on that show too, and he was got to be 80 something, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, no, they're really old, but I mean, they still got it, man. They still got it. They had lead singer from Sting, Styx on there. You remember that great '70s, early '80s band that just had like a million hits? He sounds exactly the same. You got to give credit, man. But the OJ's was the best. Those guys are, it's just amazing. Anyway, is that an Adrian? Hello, Adrian.
It's not an Adrian. Nope.
Is it a
Yeah.
Grimlock? Oh, it's a Grimlock.
What just happened there, Chester?
I wasn't paying
I
attention. I was geeking over the OJ's. Give me a break. Hey, Grimlock.
I'll allow that.
Man, the OJ's are awesome,
I'll,
dude. Now, come on now. Who would you prefer, Temptations or OJ? The OJ's Grimlock.
I'm more of an OJ's guy.
Yeah,
To be
dude.
honest.
Absolutely. How about you, Ben?
I'm actually going to go Temptations.
Yeah, they're good. I'm not going to argue it. I just felt the OJ's were more soulful. How about you, Thunder?
I'm gonna go with I plead the fifth because I have no idea who the OJs are. So
Oh my God, go listen to him, dude.
You live in Ohio and you don't know who the
I
OJs are.
know, right, dude?
true.
The fuck, bro?
I don't care about music. I'm that guy. I don't it does music artists do not move me one little bit. I mean I care about music itself, but the individual artists, don't care.
Well, Daryl.
The group that came up with the song "I Love Music" and out of this man's mouth was like,
I
I don't
love
care.
music. Right. No, they got a lot of good songs. But they came up out of
Love,
Ohio as
love.
well, Cleveland. And so did Daryl.
Yeah.
He came up out of Cleveland. Now, to be fair, though, the OJs made their bones, I think, over in Philadelphia or something like that, or maybe that was Daryl. But
Not very far from Cleveland.
well,
Few
yeah, but I'm
hours.
just saying. But they both came up out of Cleveland though. So
Well, like I say all the time, Chester, there's only two things that come out of Ohio: geniuses and maniacs. And you
fair
don't get
enough.
to decide which one you are when you leave.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So we went from talking about some of the best barbecue on the planet to one of the best soul pop bands of all time, man. Oh, that's a good opening conversation. But Thundera does have a little bit of kind of sad news. We got a couple of opening newses we'll get to before we start the show, though. But go ahead, Thundera.
There is some sad news. Paul Levesque, aka Triple H, the WWE,
Hmm.
probably, well, not even probably, definitely one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, has officially retired at the age of 52,
Hmm.
which isn't that old anymore for wrestlers. These guys keep going till, well, I
Yeah.
guess they really always have when you think about it. These guys keep going for a long time now, um, because he's had a very bad bout with his heart. He nearly died
Hmm.
multiple times in the past few months, for the past like 6 or 7 months here. He has a defibrillator internally now, inside of him, just in case.
Wow.
So he's done wrestling. He said he will probably never even get in a ring again, not even in one. So that's pretty tragic, especially considering he has 3 teenage daughters. So
He's made
he's,
a lot of
they're
money
all real
though.
young.
Yeah,
Made a lot
and they're all from
from Steph.
Vince's kids, right? Vince's daughter, right?
Yep.
Stephanie, yeah,
Yeah.
that's his wife.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because it wasn't a kayfabe; it was real, right?
Yeah. It
Okay.
was at first, and then it became real.
Yeah, that's
Right.
cool though. Yeah, 'cause they've been together forever. It's awesome. But it is sad. But I mean, he has been behind the scenes more. Well, not behind the scenes, but more in on the mic than in the ring recently, anyway. So,
Well, yeah, he hasn't been wrestling as much because mainly he just doesn't need to.
yeah,
And also he is older, so they want to try and get younger guys in there. But it is sad. It's not the way. I don't think anybody would want Triple H to go out, like not like that, because
mm,
it's just really completely against his will, right? He didn't get
yeah,
to have his. I mean, technically, he did get to have a pretty fitting last actual match at WrestleMania with Batista, and then he had some like fight with Randy Orton, but that doesn't really count.
right,
Um, but other than that, it would have been nice, I think, for him to be able to like christen somebody on his way out to
right.
do the honors as you're supposed to do. But
His match.
unfortunately,
Sorry, I was going to say his match was Stephanie McMahon versus Ronda Rousey and
hurt
um, Kurt. Yeah, that was really good,
it was.
and it was probably like crazily enough like the best match of that night. I think that was WrestleMania 35, if I remember correctly, something like that.
I think it was 34.
34. Okay,
I think so.
but he's a really interesting guy because he came to fame. He was from WCW.
Yep.
And then he created this character, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, where he was like upper class,
He was
like
Chester.
yeah, right.
Fucking A,
Um,
dude.
but then like he wanted to he everyone was striving to be the big top dog, right? Like the big baby face, right? And he was like, well, screw it, I'm going to go someplace else. I'm just going to be known as the bad guy. So he was like, I'm just going to be kind of in permanent heel mode, and he kind of expertly made himself like the heel. He was happy to take the loss, more and more times, right? But he kind of became like the top heel character within the Attitude Era. Um, and then multiple storylines. He became married to Stephanie. He got really involved in the behind the scenes, and he was critical to like recrafting NXT. And you could say that he shaped the modern era of wrestling in WWE a lot because he recruited some of their best talent, right? He Vince has always been obsessed with like monsters, right? He wants to get the biggest, buffest guys,
Yep.
but that's not what modern wrestling is really about. And a lot of the people like Vince would like recruit were not good, right? Just because you're huge doesn't mean you're going to be good at wrestling. Whereas Hunter was more interested in like technical wrestlers. He'd go for like the Finn Balor's, or he'd go for Kevin Owens or something like that, who's a little bit better on the mic. People that frankly Vince wouldn't give a second look at in any form or fashion, but he could see something in there, and those are the guys who are really driving the top stuff right now within WWE. I know it like drives Vince nuts because he just wants to get the the beefiest, oiled up, dude out there. But that's just not how wrestling works anymore. We're
Mhm.
not in the old Hulk era.
And maybe seeing as steroids is what has done this to Triple H, we should move away from that.
Well, I mean,
Apparently, he had some form of viral pneumonia. Now,
right,
whether or not he said it wasn't COVID related, so it probably wasn't. I mean, you can get viral pneumonia is a thing; it does happen.
right.
And he had viral pneumonia, and his heart just couldn't take it. He started getting fluid around his heart and stuff, and it probably, if we're honest, it probably did have something to do with PED use at some point.
Oh yeah,
I know he hasn't been on them. Probably is very. I don't think he's on them at all now, especially now. But even
yeah,
up for the last few years, because he's way smaller than he used to be.
yeah.
Uh, so I don't think he's been taking them for a very long time. But that stuff messes your heart up bad. I mean,
Well,
there's bodybuilders that dropping dead at 30,
oh
25.
yeah, but old
Oh
It's
yeah.
Grimlock, he
crazy.
pops them like Tic Tacs.
You wished. If I was, I would be out here like Bane, breaking people in half.
That's true. Yeah, it does kind of make you give that roid rage.
No,
But
no, I
anyway.
wouldn't. It wouldn't be rage. It would just be like, I'm doing this because I can."
Oh, fair enough.
It'd be
That's fair enough.
silent retribution. That's what
Yeah,
it'd
that's
be.
fair. Yeah, but I
It,
mean, at least he's
why
alive.
are
At
you
least he
doing
didn't
this? You
die.
took too long to order at Wendy's.
That's
You
true.
must be broke.
That is always true. Yeah.
I just want to say, as sort of a final note, I think it's really sad though that like Triple H, like they tore apart NXT, live in front of his eyes before he kind of got like he's been shoved out of the WWE largely, right? He doesn't really have much say anymore, right?
Oh, does he? I
And
didn't know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, they pretty much have.
there's a lot of weird stuff happening at WWE, and they're kind of circling the wagons. They've done massive layoffs, despite the fact that
Yeah.
they've actually been doing really well, like pandemic wise, right? So yeah, nobody knows what's going on. A lot of it is thought to be due to concerns over competition with AEW and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that we just don't know about, but a lot
Well,
of it's been shoving Triple H out of the position of power he's had with
that's
the
too
building.
bad.
Of NXT and stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
AEW is doing well.
it is.
It is being successful, and I mean, WWE's got to change with the times. And old.
Oh, they're
Maybe it's
terrible
time for
about
old
that.
Vince to let his boy take over.
It really is. I'm sorry, but WWE, like Vince needs to go away. Like his position or thoughts on wrestling that are frankly from a mindset built from like 60 years ago of how wrestling worked does not work in the day and age, right? Like the fact that they still make these guys, because do you know how the wrestling works? They make them do the road shows. Like these guys have to travel constantly, right? And not only are they every week going to a new town and doing their live show, they're doing 2 home shows, like house shows a week as well,
Sure.
right? So they're doing 2 house shows a week, and they're doing the live shows, and they have to travel. These guys don't get to rest at all, right? And that's the biggest problem with the wrestlers is like if you're jumping off of the top rope and landing on a table, like your body can recover from that, but it needs time. And if all you're doing is like cramming yourself into a car or a plane and not giving your body the time to relax or
Oh yeah.
recuperate, that's how they end up doing drugs and stuff like that, right? So they need to revamp the system, and they need to get away from Vince, and he needs to stop putting terrible fucking people or like picking like the push that they did on Roman Reigns for so long
Oh my God,
Oh,
that
dude.
6
Jesus
that
years.
nobody
Christ.
right, it was terrible. And eventually Roman came to him and said, "Listen, this isn't working. Make me a heel. I want to be a heel." He had to
Oh,
like
he's so
fight with
good.
Vince to do it.
Yeah.
He's so much
And
better.
that's working. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so much better. But like
Well,
to get there, how many years did we have to deal with terrible like babyface Roman that did not
Uh,
work, no matter how much they tried to get it to work?
as bad as Cena's Super Cena years were, the Roman stuff was just so much worse because it was one, we had already had the Super Cena years, so there was that, and then we had
Yeah.
Roman that it wasn't even like with Cena where you had half the audience on his side and half against him. Roman was a good 80-20 against him at all times, if not more. And they just
Yep.
kept pushing and just kept
yeah.
pushing, and
No,
it's
Vince
like,
does that.
geez.
Vince does
He,
do that. But going back talking about the road wear. Although to be fair, if you're in a TV blackout area where they're doing a road show, you will get a very different look match because a lot of those guys will take a fall if it's a blackout situation, right?
oh yeah,
So you can get some pretty cool stuff. But actually, I saw a documentary from old Grandpa there, Ric Flair. and he he was totally out of out of kayfabe. But it was one of those non kayfabe channels, right, where they just talk honestly.
Right.
And he laid it down, dude. He said this is one of the reasons why there's so much drug abuse in wrestling, is
Yeah.
because of the wear they have. They have just all week. You're just moving. You're moving. You're moving. It's a really good documentary. I'd suggest watching it.
Well, the good news is a lot of the modern wrestlers, not all of them, but a lot of them, I'd say probably even most of them, are either straight edge, meaning they do nothing, or they're basically straight edge when it comes to hard stuff, and they won't do it. That problem for at least the top tier guys has thankfully been fixed through better decision making. Plus, the WWE has a better, and just wrestling in general takes health much more seriously than it used to. So those guys used to just beat the hell out of each other, literally beat the hell out of themselves. And now it is a lot better, but I think there's still a lot more that can be done. I've always advocated for, especially with WWE, they have all of these resources. There's no real reason they need to do a weekly show with both of their shows. I don't understand why they don't have one run for a few months and then another run for a few months and give their guys a rest.
Yeah,
I've never understood it. It
yeah,
would but they'd probably get higher ratings because people will be like, "Hey, they're back, cool." They actually get a chance to miss them instead of they're
yeah.
always constantly on, and most of the time it's garbage because they're just out. There's just nobody who can write that many storylines every week that often and have them be interesting. It just doesn't
Dude,
work.
the Funkasaurus is
Well,
the TV champion, though. That's all I need to say.
well. Also, I will say mostly, even without that, most of the guys out there are fucking boring.
They
Yep.
can
Like
be, yeah.
everybody made the big whoopsie do about as many people who were cut by the WWE over the last 2 years, but they've went elsewhere and none of them have blown up. So and to be honest, after a couple of months, you didn't really miss them at all.
I don't know. I
No,
thought Miro's done really well in AEW. I think a few of the guys who went to AEW have done pretty well.
Miro was
yeah,
But they're
doing
especially
still,
well, and then he
Cody.
got hurt.
Cody's done a good job.
they're but they're pretty much still in the same spot, just in a different company. Miro's doing well, but he's still a mid carder. Like
Yeah.
everybody was acting like when he got cut, like this was the future main event in Raw that was being let go. Yeah,
Right.
given a couple of years, he's proven that he pretty much is what he is.
Yeah, no, a lot of it comes down to charisma, though. I mean, like if you
Yeah.
go watch some of the old Ric Flair, talk about Grandpa again. You go watch some of the old Ric Flair stuff. It's clearly fake. I mean, he'll get hit, take 5 steps, and then do a flip, fall down. I mean, it's freaking Ric Flair. It's so fake, but you know what? It's awesome. He sells that
It's
like
awesome.
crazy because
Yeah.
of his charisma. Yeah,
Well, it's
Hey,
dude soap opera. That's
yeah,
all it
that's
is,
what it
right?
is.
It's dude
Yeah.
soap operas, and it's action and drama, which we like, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Um,
No, yeah,
you know, but I think they've had a writing problem for a long time.
sure.
Like the stories are kind of stale. They're not doing good, interesting stories, and they're pushing like the wrong talent. They are terrible about pushing people who have like proper enthusiasm, right? So if you take a look at like Daniel Bryan, who was completely wasted because there was legitimate like excitement around him,
Yeah,
but Vince didn't like him because he was short and a vegan, right? And so he pushed Roman Reigns instead, and that's one of the reasons that Roman gets all that heat is because they didn't want Roman, they wanted Daniel, right?
yeah.
And
But
so
Daniel kind of won over a little bit in the end anyway. But I know what you're saying. But a good example of that I think is like Cody Rhodes is a very capable wrestler as far as in the
totally,
ring generalship. But he's really not that interesting. However, if you take someone who has tons of charisma, like his brother Goldust, and you put them in a tag team together, but against a couple of very capable Samoans, that is the best match I've seen in decades.
Yeah,
My
their
God.
their matches with the Usos were always really good.
My God, dude,
Um,
insane, and it's such a difference because Cody's kind of boring. He has great ring generalship, he does, but he's just not interesting. But you put his brother in there, damn, there it goes, and he's an old man.
he's still wrestling. He just wrestled a match Friday, I think it was.
Yeah. Anyway,
Crazy old bastard. Well, technically it was Wednesday, but yeah, it aired on Friday.
Sure. But anyway, Triple H, take a break, dude. That's right. I mean, because he's an important part of the WWF or E, I guess now,
Junior,
history. He's part of it. So, good for him,
absolutely.
man. Take a break. And what
Oh,
was
he's probably. I mean, in all honesty, as far as longevity, he's probably the best heel they've ever had. Best bad guy. He was just for so long. He was the main dude that everybody was hated.
Oh yeah,
Hated him so much they loved him.
and the number
And
2 entrance of all time.
yeah, he does it. I always did like his entrance. He has one of
Yeah.
the loudest crowd reactions I've ever
Oh
heard
yeah.
was when he in 2002 when he came back from
Big pop.
injury after a year.
Yeah.
It was
And all
insane.
you Jericho fans out there can go right to hell. Shut up. Shut up. I hear you. I hear you. No. Bad Jericho fans. Because number 1 is definitely Undertaker. Number 2 is Triple H. Ain't nothing to talk about it. And the
no,
Funkasaurus is number 3. So take
like
it.
break the walls down. Break the
Although
walls
the
down is
Godfather was pretty good. What?
break the walls down was pretty good intro song. I'm just saying.
No, it was, yeah. Jericho's another dude you can sit and talk about quite a bit. I mean, that dude rebuilt himself as well.
He's rebuilt himself like a dozen times.
Mhm.
That's one of the things that's been great about Jericho is that he
He's
understands
Madonna.
the bit. Well, yeah, I mean, he understands the business. You can't rely on monotony in the business. You have to reinvent yourself. I mean, that's one of the reasons why he went to AEW is that
Yep.
he wanted to reinvent himself, and he did, and he helped rejuvenate or help build their franchise and stuff,
He
right?
did. Yeah. No, absolutely. But I mean, come on, who has the best entrance? Who's number 1?
Oh, Undertaker. Yeah,
Undertaker, right?
yeah,
Yeah, probably from an iconic perspective,
yeah.
Undertaker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That bell hits. That's it. You just got goosebumps. I've been
Yes,
in
you
the
do.
arena. It's
Yeah.
instant goosebumps. Instant.
See, I haven't though. I've never been in the ring when he come in because the last time I saw wrestling live was back when I literally had Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant walk past me.
Yep.
Yeah,
When
that
I
was
was
pretty
when
cool.
I was a real young man, probably like 4 or 5, around that time, right? Super young man. We went to a house show here. Or actually, it might have been in Detroit, but it was somewhere in this area. And we got front row tickets. I don't know how that happened, but we did. And they had an Andre the Giant and somebody match, and he was outside the ring, and the guy pushed him, and Andre was. This was when he was, he wasn't as steady on his feet as he used to be, and he stumbled and fell into the railing right on top of us. And I remember it to this day, watching that giant man fall towards me.
Right,
Terrified me.
right, yeah, yeah. Alan disagrees. He thinks the Undertaker's number 3 and number 2 is the Warrior. He didn't put in number 1. No, to be
If you
fair
like the
though,
Warrior.
the Warrior, I don't know if I call that an entrance if it weren't just cocaine fueled blind rage. I'm not sure
Yeah.
which. But now I have seen the Warrior live, and yeah, the pop that comes off the Warrior is pretty impressive. Because I mean, I was on the other side from me, unfortunately, because they were well, it depends on what stadium you're in, but he was on the other side. But I saw just a glimpse of him. The crowd blew up and then disappeared because he was on the other side of the ring, and then he's in the ring, and there's oh my god, dude, freaking Ultimate Warrior, dude. Uh,
I
all
know a
right.
weird little factoid about the Ultimate Warrior. He broke into wrestling, and one of the first things he did was tag with Sting, when a very young Sting. That's why they both had very similar face paint. That's where they got it from. They were a tag team together.
I didn't know that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember the
Yep.
Von Erichs.
Oh yeah.
They were great. They were pretty cool. I was young then, but they were neat, and they had they were more of the gentlemanly wrestlers. And for a long time, everyone was kind of saying, "Is the Ultimate Warrior one of the Von Erichs in makeup?" I remember that was going on for a while, and then it was no, he's the Dingo Warrior. I'm not sure he was any of those things.
He got
No,
both
he
of them.
was the Dingo Warrior.
He was the Dingo Warrior. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
no, he was Dingo Warrior. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He wasn't a Von Erich though.
No,
Um,
no, he wasn't. Yeah.
he was his own man, and then he was literally just the Warrior. That's what he changed his name to. Just Warrior. Warrior was on his license plate.
Oh,
Or
really?
his
Perfect.
driver's license.
Yes.
As it should be. Anyway, what was the other news we were going to talk about before we went on, though?
I don't know. What was it? I thought you
If
said you had something.
no, it was yours.
Oh, the Elon Musk thing?
Yeah. Go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
So old Elon Musk on Twitter a couple days ago put up a poll asking if does basically the premise is does Twitter respect the principle of free speech?
Hmm.
Yes or no. Very simple yes or no question. and the resounding was no, they do not.
Of course not.
I think it was like 70 to 30 or whatever. And he said, under this poll will actually have consequences, so vote carefully or something like that. Then the next day, or maybe it was later that day, but it was a while later, he said, what should be done about this? Because if the internet and social media is de facto the new public square where people come to discuss things, then for a democracy to function, you have to be able to express yourself. You have to have free speech.
Yeah, I think he
And
named Twitter as the de facto town square, though.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and and then he had said something about basically what's the solution to this was basically, I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he was getting at. And a lot of people took that as him putting out feelers on whether to either try and buy Twitter, which he could do, or build his own version of Twitter. Now, my opinion on Twitter, not or whether it's a thing for free speech or whatever, well, that's what it started as. That was all their marketing back in the day. That's what they wanted to be. And then corporate interests are corporate interests, and they're not that anymore. But I think the best solution, if Elon is going to make a move to try and secure the principle of free speech, whether or not the law, you can make an argument whether or not the law is being violated or not, but the principle is definitely being violated.
Sure.
So, what would that look like? Well, I think he should just buy Twitter. If he can get the financing around to do it, and he definitely can, he should just make a play for it and try and buy a controlling interest in the company. And then he can do what he pleases. He can
Sure.
change whatever rules he wants.
And keep in mind, there's no way that Elon Musk, any form of Twitter, is going to be absolute free speech. It's not. That's not what it's going to be. The problem with Twitter, and Twitter can fix their problems very quickly. Set your rules out very clearly, which they don't. They're very ambiguous, and then enforce them equally. That's it. And if Elon bought Twitter and did that, everyone would be happy. Well, you're never going to make the progressives happy, but you know what I mean. Um, but I mean, it is an interesting idea. I did see one comment that I thought was very interesting because, Elon's main focus, what he really, really wants to do, even though he takes money for anything you try to throw at him, he wants to go to Mars. That's his big thing, right? He wants to go to
Yeah.
Mars. Yeah.
Yeah.
And someone had said, if we don't have any kind of social cohesion and peaceful interaction, how the hell are we supposed to go to Mars? It was an interesting comment, I thought.
True. Well,
Yeah.
one of the things that was a unifier for most people, I would say around the first world, the civilized world, whatever you want to call it, the wealthy world, especially the Western world, was the space race, was the idea
Sure.
of humanity's destiny is in the stars. I think we used to believe that in the West. I don't know if we still do, but I do, and I think Elon does. And I think there's a lot of people who still do and think that, Star Trek's a pretty cool future. Maybe we could get there. Maybe that can happen. And I think that is something that is worth striving for as a civilization. Obviously, we have a lot of terrestrial problems we still need to fix, but
Oh
you
my
can
God.
solve two problems at once. And I think Elon, yeah, I think you're right. He does want to go to Mars. He's been very clear about this. And somebody actually accused him once of it going to. The reason he was doing it was as an escape plan for the super wealthy or something like that. And he just shot that right down because it was obviously ridiculous. That's not what it's about for him. I do think that's what Bezos is after, but I don't think that's what Elon's after.
He's a
But I
dreamer.
think exactly. I think Elon's a dreamer. I do think it's a good idea. Either somebody like an Elon would have to buy up one of the major social media networks. Actually, Twitter's the smallest one, to be honest. Instagram and Facebook are way bigger than Twitter. But or another solution, which is one a lot of people wouldn't like, but it would be a solution, would be we already have a postal service. The purpose of the postal service is communication, right? So we can communicate with each other. That's why one of the main reasons it was ratified as a de facto federal agency, even though it isn't, uh, was
Fat
for
ladies
that.
in shorts.
Is because we need to be able to talk to each other. How we it's a right, it's a something that is guaranteed under the Constitution, the ability to express ourselves with each other. How can we organize any form of protest or whatever if we can't have open communication? is the idea, right? That's why the Postal Service was ratified.
Mhm.
I think we need something similar to that for the digital space. I don't know what it would be. I don't know if it would be Twitter itself, probably not. But one solution he suggested was making Twitter's code open source. And then that way people could literally just make that very easily. Um, I don't know what the answer to that question is, but I like that men like Elon Musk are asking it because it's an important one.
So you're proposing some pretty interesting ideas here, and I just want to take it a stretch further because it almost sounds like you're saying the internet is a right because it's needed to conduct day-to-day activities. Is that
No,
equivalent to what you're saying?
I would say any any tool that is created in the commons, and the internet is definitely in the commons,
Okay.
for speech, for communication,
Right.
should not be infringed upon by anybody except for extreme circumstances like child porn or something like that.
Right.
Other than that, I don't think we need controls over what people do and do not say, except for actual criminality. So the best example I can give you would be like phone companies. By and large, they don't, and are not permitted to censor you in any way. You can say whatever you want. Now, somebody might be listening, but you can say whatever you want over them. Um, and that those records can be maintained, grabbed with a court order and things of this nature if need be. I think that's a perfectly valid system. I don't see any reason why you couldn't do that with social media. Even with what we're using here, we're using Discord and YouTube. I don't see any reason why you couldn't have that level of neutrality, actual net neutrality, on the communication side of the internet. I think the law should be very simple. If your main function is to facilitate communication, social media, postal service, whatever, you should not be permitted to censor opinion of any kind, even if it's egregious opinion. Now, there's obviously differing levels of that depending on what the law says, of course. But I think that's a perfectly reasonable standard that most Americans would probably agree to,
So
personally.
Wait a
well,
minute.
hold on a second, Ben. Thundero, but before I let him take his pound of flesh, you didn't see that gigantic poison spike trap right in front of you? You didn't see that?
Gigantic poison spike trap? No.
Yeah. Okay.
What was it?
Okay. Go ahead, Ben.
No, there's no poison spike trap. I'm not trying to nail Thundero down on anything. You present a lot of interesting ideas, and I don't necessarily disagree with all of them, but there's a lot of implications of that. When you talk about the phone company, it's a little bit different because
Yes.
within the phone company, you're talking about a one-on-one topic conversation, not a broadcast, right? When we talk about speaking to the public at large, we definitely have laws and rules about that, right? The FCC exists specifically to put limitations of what we say to the public. That's why, like on television programs, they can't say certain curse words and stuff like that. So the FCC exists, and that definitely restricts broadcasting. Whether or not that's right or not, that's a whole different conversation. But um, my point being is that the post office exists, and because of that, I think you're correct. It gives people the ability to communicate to each other, to get bills,
Yep.
all these things, and it's done in such a way that it's not cost prohibitive to everyone, right?
Correct.
And so I like your idea, but for that to bear out true, there would need to be some type of like subsidy to ensure
Yes.
cheap enough internet for everyone to be able to access it. If we're going to say that it's a public common good,
A
right?
Yeah.
utility. Yeah.
A utility, yeah, right. Just like
And that's not even that hard to facilitate. You know how I know that? Because Sweden already has it. They
you're
have
on board with that.
incredibly cheap internet.
So you're on board with that, though.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that as long as it's neutral and it's in law, hard law, not just
Oh,
code law, like actually a hard law that would take a mass act of Congress to change. That it must be neutral at all times. There would probably even need to be some sort of oversight for it, of course, to make sure that it stays neutral. Because if you don't leave it neutral, then somebody on one side or the other eventually is going to weaponize it. They just
you're talking
will.
about two different things, though, because there's a difference in the ISP, the internet service provider, uh, uh, censoring you versus like a website, right? So again,
Well,
I'm
but it's
not
a
arguing with you,
distinction
but
without a difference at the end of the day. I mean, we know for a fact Google
there's a
controls
difference.
most of the internet. Uh, Most traffic on the internet goes through social media and through YouTube and things, and Google, of course. So yes, they're technically private companies, but they have such a massive market share, especially in America, that it's kind of hard to make that case. It'd be like if when AT&T was, near monopoly, or at least allegedly, and the government went and handled that because they didn't want that to happen, and I
Right.
think that's right.
Then why
Yeah.
don't we
It's
do
kind of
that
the
then?
same thing.
Then why
Well,
don't
we
we do
could do
that
that.
then?
I'm 100. If the left was serious about that, I would be right there with them. But I don't believe them. I don't think they are serious about it. I think
I'm curious
they want
about
to
it.
talk about it. Well, yeah, but
I,
I mean, like Elizabeth Warren and them, who always rattles on about it. I don't think she's actually serious about it. I think she knows it's kind of like red meat type deal, right? She can throw out there and people will gnaw on it because they
oh
don't
yeah,
like.
it's easy to say,
Yeah,
but you're like,
yeah, yeah.
I'll agree with that, right?
Yeah. But I know,
Um,
I think there's way too much control over the internet. I think the internet of 15 years ago was a much better place, even if it was the Wild West by and large. I don't think we need these controls over the internet. I think they're being put in place, and it's kind of a Frankenstein's monster situation where people think they're doing the right thing, but at the end of the day, they're creating a monster. And that
I'm
monster can absolutely control discourse and literally change history effectively because people just forget if it's not brought up to them. Um, and that's terrifying. That's something that we should all be terrified of as free people, as people who value freedom. We shouldn't want anything monolithic, whether it's private or public, to be in control of what information we can get our hands on. That is, I mean, that's anathema to what the First Amendment's about. Whether the First Amendment is just about government control or not, that's a debate. But let's say it is, regardless, the principles of the First Amendment, the idea is you have to have a free mind so that you can engage in the public, in discourse, in the polity. And when you have any institution, I don't care if it's public or private, that has a stranglehold on that particular market, that's a threat. That's a danger to the principles of freedom. And I think America was founded, by and large, at least on paper, on those principles. And I don't think we should abandon them for any reason, but especially not for fear, out of fear of what someone might say. I don't think that's right. Even if the thing they say is repugnant, they should be allowed to say it.
so
And go ahead.
go. Well,
No, go
I
ahead.
was. I'm gonna disagree with you in a tactful situation, and so you're right on certain platforms. Like we'll just take Twitter for an example because that's the one that we're fencing on, right?
Sure.
There are some limitations that are put in place due to certain things, right? Now, I'm assuming you're saying that because you believe conservatives are censored more than liberals are or progressives on Twitter, or do you just
Anyone
feel like
who has the wrong opinion,
That's
whatever
right.
politic they might have.
That's
okay?
right.
I don't quite know what that means, but we'll go with that for a moment. Um, we do know that in other platforms, ones that aren't as public, consumption wise, right? Like Discord's a great example. You guys have a Discord server, and there's no censoring of the Discord server, right? There's
Well,
other
not yet. They're planning it,
Well,
but
there
yes,
has
go ahead.
been actually,
well,
but
but
not
they'll
to
they'll
us.
they'll wipe out like child pornography and stuff like that, right? But there's not any censoring of like in the private discords of yours or others that I know of, right? And I know of some fairly conservative Discord servers. Okay, my point being is that you're talking about extending the concept of the Second Amendment in such a way that not the Second Amendment, the First Amendment.
I was like, wait,
The
we extended the Second Amendment. Now you got my attention. No, go ahead.
It's a whole different conversation that we can have. But the First Amendment was designed to stop censoring from the federal government of language used by individuals. Right now, we know that that's already been violated by stuff like the FCC. But you want to
Yeah,
extend that not just from federal intervention, but private intervention of public speak as well. Right? Is what you're
absolutely.
saying.
Right,
Absolutely.
as it's intended. Yeah,
Which
but
was the original intention,
yeah,
because you have to understand that obviously, the left makes the case all the time that the Constitution was written for a different time. They're not wrong. It obviously was. They didn't have in America corporations like we have corporations now. The way corporations operate today was changed about 100 years ago, a little over 100 years ago, through some machinations we don't have to get into, but functionally they're very different beasts than they used to be. America used to be an anti-corporate state. We did not, in the states individually, they did not trust corporations. And there's a good reason for that. It was corporations that oppressed the people who fought the revolution. in the name of the crown. That's who was doing it, was crown corporations. And we had a very, what's the word I'm looking, we were very cautious about corporations and corporate power because our ancestors saw what they were capable of if they got in bed with government, especially. Because then there's no oversight, right? They can just get away with kind of whatever they want. And I think this idea of the modern corporation being a private entity, okay, yeah, most of your LLCs are pretty much completely private entities. But these massive corporations, especially ones that you have government contracts, they're not private entities. They're public entities that effectively, it's kind of like how the mob has a front business. That's basically what most of these companies are. Twitter, Facebook, Google to some extent, they were propped up through government fucking Elon Musk's companies, Tesla and things. They were propped up through government subsidies. Then they went to the private market and made a bunch of money. Now you can say, well, okay, yeah, but at the end of the day, a corporation, a modern corporation today, there's only one reason it exists, and that is for taxation. That's it. The government basically brings them into existence, gives them rights, which is ridiculous, and then they take those rights and they go into the market and do whatever, right? They make their money however they are making their money, whatever their product happens to be. Um, I think that because of that incestuous relationship between the way modern corporations are founded, which every single one is founded with the behest of the government, at the behest and at the granting of the government through licensing and chartering. It's not even hard to do. It only to get a federal EIN takes like 20 minutes. And I think it's free, at least it used to be. And it's not difficult to do at all. But the reason why it's done is so that the government has an entity to tax. That's the only reason that this relationship exists. These corporations, all of them, every single one that we interact with, especially the big ones like Walmart, McDonald's, the corporations that own McDonald's and all these things, they only exist because the government willed them to exist or permits them to exist the way they do now, and grants them certain protections and rights under the law that effectively make them very, very hard to prosecute or even sue in many cases. And I think that whole ball of wax, that whole thing is a serious problem. But one way we can easily tackle this fascistic, weird corporatist ball that has become the federal government is by making sure that the very first right we have is infringed on by nobody who has the power to do so. Now, that being said, individuals don't have to necessarily listen to each other. I have no problem with people being allowed to block each other. I have a problem with government officials doing it. I think actually when Trump, there was that big hullabaloo about him blocking people on Twitter when he was president. I actually don't have a problem with people thinking that's wrong when you're president. You're a public figure and this is how you're communicating. I think the people you're ruling over should be able to see it and interact with it as much as possible. But that's another whole ball of wax. But
Yeah, no.
basically, the principle is very simple. If you're a company and your job, the product that you give to the people, is communication, you have no right to censor at all unless the law says you must, meaning child pornography or criminal activity or extreme violence or extreme threats of self-harm, things of this nature that the law already regulates. I don't have any problem with most of those laws. I think they're probably all fine. I don't know them all, so I can't say they're all fine. But I think that should be the standard. I think that's a standard we would use for pretty much every government agency. And these corporations now, many of them have so much power, whether through lobbying or just direct power through the machinations of their own companies. They need to have a limit to that power that is checked against the rights of the people. And if they don't, well, then we don't really have any rights, and they do. They're
Well,
the new aristocracy, and we're their serfs, basically.
may I interject?
Go ahead.
First of all, freedom of speech, the first bill, right on the Bill of Rights, has been violated millions of times since
Yes.
its
Right.
inception. Millions. Just go back and
Even
look
by
at
the original Congress, they
yes,
violated it
just
right
go back and
away.
look at Abraham Lincoln and see what he did, right?
Yeah,
Millions of times. So, I love the idea of freedom of speech, and I think it should be a real thing. But let's be fair, it's not. It's not, right?
correct.
Um, and the problem with what you're talking about, and I get your take. If you federalize the internet, you're giving them exactly what they want.
It's already federalized. All we're doing is taking away the mask. The
I
internet's been federalized since day one.
in
Never not
certain
been
ways,
federalized.
but I'm talking about, federalizing something specific like Google or Twitter, making it an actual governmental, utility. You're That's not going to work out well. It's not. Whereas we do have other, uh, equipment in our law system, to be able to go and deal with monopolies like Google, right? And Google does need to be dealt with, in
Oh yeah,
some way or another.
Amazon
Because
and Google need to be broken up
they
completely.
they do,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm just
agree.
saying we have devices in place to do that. We
Let
don't.
me be more clear. I do not want it fully nationalized. What I want is I want neutrality nationalized. I want. Well, you remember how everybody was crying about net neutrality, even though they had it backwards, because they were afraid ISPs were going to start censoring effectively or start jacking up their prices because they could now, which didn't happen. Um, I want actual net neutrality. I want that ratified under law. Basically, we would have to, what all you have to do. It's very simple. You take the First Amendment and you say this also applies to institutions who facilitate
Yeah,
it.
but you shouldn't have to.
Simple.
You
Well,
shouldn't
you
have
shouldn't
to.
have to do a lot of things. You
It's the
shouldn't need
same thing.
laws for murder,
Well, I'm
but
just
you
no, I'm
already
just
got them.
saying you shouldn't have to. It's just like the Second Amendment and the whole gun rights thing. It's
Mhm.
very, very clear in the Bill of Rights that your rights shall not be infringed. It's super, super clear.
Super
We don't
serial.
need to add layers to that because all it does is convolute and weaken it.
Well, we do need to, unfortunately, because there are people who argue, mostly people who are taking money from these corporations, who argue till they're blue in the face that there's no problem whatsoever. And I'll argue that to say there's no problem is either naive or malicious, because there's clearly a problem.
Oh,
You
obviously.
don't have half the country feeling like there's a problem and there not be something going on,
Well, dude,
right?
30% of people on Elon Musk polls said that Twitter was fair and balanced and
Yes.
respected, free speech.
Now there could be
Right there
massive
shows you the
bias.
problem.
Yeah, there could be massive bias in his audience, of course. That's very possible. But I don't think it's that massive. That's a pretty big disparity. That's a super majority of people who
Sure.
said, yeah, it said no, that they don't respect free speech. Now, the problem is because they don't have to. I would change the law and just say that they have to. And what I'm saying is you don't have to change the First Amendment. You just change the way the law is enforced.
Yeah, but
They do it
see,
all the time at the federal government. All the
it's
time.
It would.
already been changed. The Supreme Court, who has no right to make law, but for some reason we've been letting them do it for decades, came
Mhm.
in and voted that corporations are not held to the law of free speech. They've
Yes.
already said this. They've already made it law,
So the
uh,
solution is to go
illegally.
around them.
I'm
The
just
Supreme
saying.
Court has near supreme authority in the country, except against one thing. You know what that one thing is? A convention of
Um,
the states. If the
well,
convention of the states
Well,
makes a
dude,
law,
they
makes
still
an
haven't
amendment,
ratified the IRS with the Convention of
well,
States, and
I
you'll go
no.
to
What I'm
damn jail
saying,
if you don't pay your taxes, though, even
what
though it's
what I'm saying,
unratified.
what I'm saying is, if you get 37 states to agree, which would be very hard to do. I'm just saying this is hypothetical, of course. 37 states to agree that this must be done, and you make an amendment for it. You could call it whatever. There's all different interpretations on the online, different facilitations for this. Some call it a digital bill of rights, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. The name of it. And they push it through. There's no one in the federal government who can stop it. The
this
supreme authority to the Constitution is still the states. Absolute supreme authority. And then above them is supposed to be the people, but we're so
I
disparate now,
think
it's
I think you could
hold on.
get
very hard.
37 to agree that California sucks.
But so this is funny that Chet constantly refers to you as a libertarian. This is not the libertarian answer, and this is
No.
would be a
No,
massive
I'm the
expansion.
libertarian answer.
Yeah,
Right.
you're the wrong answer, Chester. We
I
get
know
it. I
I'm
know.
not.
This would be a massive expansion of federal power over
Yes.
corporations, and that's I know a lot of people who wouldn't be in favor because you're basically saying that the federal government can then control and dictate, you know, what private companies do within their public forums and stuff like that, right? And
They already
I get
do.
what you're saying, but first of all, you can't this can't be a state driven thing because you can't have state like bubbles of the internet that's going to be disproportionate.
Correct.
That's going to be
Correct.
weird, right? And so it would have to come from the federal, right? And to do what you are proposing here would be a massive shift of how we look at federal interaction at the private industry perspective, right?
Yeah, but would it though? Think about it for a second. You already have
No,
no.
I
Think
thought
about it.
all about it. It's an absolutely like huge like
Think about it
shift
for
of
1 second though. You already have the EPA. You already have the Department of Labor. You already have, especially in banking and in certain aspects of the medical industry, you have tons of regulation that tell them exactly what they must do at all times for
right.
safety and things. You already have laws against, if they have been found in violation of somebody's civil rights, they can actually be prosecuted for that. Corporations can. It happens on a fairly regular basis. My mother was actually involved in a case like that a long time ago. But this is something the federal government already has the power to do. All I'm suggesting is that instead of them regulating things that mostly don't really matter, certain things the EPA and the Department of Health and Safety and things that these departments handle, for the most part, would be easily, or OSHA. That's the one I'm looking for. That OSHA does. A lot of that stuff is very redundant. If you've ever worked in a OSHA facility, meaning like a factory or a warehouse, the OSHA rules, of course, they follow them, but you don't really need to because most likely the corporation already has better rules in place anyway. Um, my point is, we already have the government telling businesses what they can and can't do all the time, every single day. There are myriad of regulations.
Right.
I see no reason why a regulation that sole purpose is to ratify the First Amendment as the law of the land yet again and say that no institutional power has the authority over the citizenry's ability to express themselves. When of course there's limitations to everything, but when they're, especially if it's something that is designed for the express purpose of self-expression, a communications company, that should be a regulation that a communications company must follow. They must be neutral. They cannot enforce with outside of the law anything at all. I don't care. I don't even care if it's, pick the egregious thing of the day. They have no say over that. They can't do that without a court order or without some sort of law being passed that tells them they must. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for massively change. I mean, I would want to massively change corporations. Let's not get it wrong. But when it comes to this specific issue of free speech on the internet, all you need is to say, no, you're no longer allowed to do that. Done. Now, we already have that on the books. This isn't even a new law that needs to be made. The Section 230 laws, the way that they're divided is between provider and publisher. Right now, these companies have been for a very long time acting as both and using loopholes to get away with it.
Well, that's the problem. They're inside a loophole. They're being protected.
Yes.
You could end this by just taking away that protection, really.
Take
But
that
I
loophole
do
away
I do need to
and then
say
ratify it.
something. It's very
Go
important.
ahead.
I can't wait any longer because Alan has triggered me with his fucking avocado toast.
I mean, have you ever had avocado toast? It's
It's
tasty.
slimy.
I love avocados. I'm growing avocado trees right now just so I
Oh
can
my
have more
God! You
avocado
go
toast.
join Alan in California then.
I
If you
mean, I
love
would
him
if
so much.
I do, Alan. Just, kisses.
Sorry, I
Um,
couldn't resist.
I know people, especially extreme libertarians like my boy Chester up there, are afraid of government power. Rightfully so. But we have a government. It needs to do its damn job. And its number one and supreme job, is to ensure the rights of the people against all threats to them, whether they're private or public. It doesn't matter. The oath that everybody takes when they work for the federal government, I've taken it because I work for the post office, is to uphold the Constitution from all threats, both foreign and domestic. It doesn't say governmental threats. It doesn't say only threats with people with guns or whatever. It says all threats, foreign and domestic.
Yep.
And there's a reason for that. There's a reason that is that because there's more than what people think of traditionally can be a threat. And if a communications company has gained enough power to where they can become that threat, then they need to be dealt with. Now you can either break them up.
No, hold on. All right, you've been soapboxing for a while on this.
Go ahead.
Let me take the reins. Okay. I get what you're saying, but understand that there's like the theory of what you're saying has a lot of caveats to that. Like there's going to be 100 asterisks to this, right? And so it's going to make it very complicated for this to be implemented in the way that you're proposing, right? Let's just take away, the child pornography and all that stuff. That's the easy stuff, right? So when you talk about, like protecting people from domestic threats, right? So what if somebody, in theory, started posting online, "Hey kids, eat the Tide Pods. They're a lot of fun." And be, Twitter would then say, you know what, there's a chance that people are going to do this and they could, be bad. And then so they
We should
stop.
really thin out the dumb ones, to be honest with you,
Well,
man.
this happens sometimes where there are, things that could be considered a public threat that, they want to stop people from doing dumb shit that's going to kill themselves. Right now,
Well, why should the government care?
Correct.
No.
Neutrality.
No. Hold on. This goes back directly to what Thundero was talking about. The government's job is to protect people from, threats, foreign and domestic. That could
Let me correct you real quick.
a domestic threat, and then that needs to be taken.
You're right. Let me correct the way I said it. Because you're right. I said people. I don't mean people. I mean their rights. I don't need the government to protect me necessarily. Obviously, if it's some grand overarching enemy going to invade, yeah, that's their job. But as far as from my own decisions, I don't want the government necessarily to protect me. When it comes to my rights, though, I absolutely want the government to protect those. There's a difference between a person's life and a person's individual rights. Now, that doesn't mean that I want the government to be completely hands off and to allow people to, if there is a genuine problem, like you're talking about the Tide Pod thing, there's a genuine problem, then they can investigate, they can look into it. If they need to, they can make they can do what they need to do. But they can do that now, and they do it all the time. Look at Alex Jones. He was just sued repeatedly because of the Sandy Hook stuff, whether you agree with it or not. He was, and that is something that can happen. And that was in private court, of course. But you can also look at, there's all kinds of cases where people say really, really stupid shit online, and the government comes knocking. Like, what's up? What are you doing? I have no problem necessarily with that system. What I would have a problem with is when you don't even have the option to do that. I don't need the government to protect me from my own stupidity. I need the government to protect me from other people's stupidity. And there is a difference there. And the difference is, what I mean by other people's stupidity is when large multinational corporations, billion dollar corporations, have the power to effectively nullify or completely suspend my rights. That's a problem. A serious problem. But go ahead. Sorry, I don't want to get back on. I'll let you go.
Yeah. I get the gist of what you're saying, but from an argumentative perspective, the point that you can make can be presented from the other side as well, quite easily within the interpretation of protecting rights, protecting life, protecting liberty, however you want to phrase it, right? Like you said, there is that specific phrase, protect from threats, foreign and domestic and stuff, right? So, it's complicated, I think, is the long short of it, right? The nature of the interaction that you're talking about from the federal government onto the corporations for this specific subject, right, is complicated, because it even gets into, what if it's not let's go a step further, right? What if it's not a corporation per se, but an individual? Like, I can easily get a DNS server up and running, and I can start posting stuff. I can have like a VMware or something like that, and I can just make a website. I can purchase a DNS provider and redirect stuff to a website and start putting together a private blog, and I can just start posting horribly egregious stuff there, right? Like awful stuff, not the stuff that we were talking about previously, right? Stuff that go ahead.
No, sorry, my wife asked me a question. Go ahead.
No. So, and at a certain point, depending on what this stuff is, it could be that the federal government asks, like the ISP to take it down, right? And again, it becomes a question of like, what is the content, right?
And who chooses, Ben? This is the problem. The government shouldn't be making those calls at all. At all. You should be able to get up and talk about the most egregious crap you want to talk about because you're talking.
I agree.
Okay.
I
All
think
right.
I think the only times where the
I think
government
it's
should be
complicated.
stepping in. Yeah, it is the only, and it is complicated. But if our government wasn't a bunch of 90-year-old people who don't even
Yeah,
know what a
I'll agree with
computer is,
that. Let's get all the
these
boomers
these
out of that.
conversations could be actually had with the force of the law behind them. We could sort it. We could suss it out.
Understand like technology in office, other than people who like, what's Twitter?
Yes,
Oh my God, I
exactly.
still can't believe
Yeah.
that happened. But
But
yeah,
my point is, I actually agree. I think that we should be allowed to pretty much say just about anything. There must be exceptions, and those exceptions are pretty much we already really have the law for it. It's just not applied to it because of code law and weird bureaucratic rules.
yeah, but
You
what is it
fine.
that you can say that should be illegal because you said it?
I'm gonna go kill this person.
Okay, now, I would say that in and of itself is not the issue. Now, if someone goes and kills that person, then you're liable.
Well, yes, I'm not saying they should be thrown in prison, but somebody can come investigate and make sure they're not actually planning to kill this person. I don't have any problem with that. That's literally the job of the police. That's
Okay,
what they should be.
so we're all
It's more
about the Minority
complicated.
Report now.
No, so it's
No,
all
not if you're openly saying you're going to go kill somebody. If you're making actual threats, that's illegal. If I go out in public, I'm standing on the street corner, and somebody walks up to me, and I tell them I'm going to kill them, and a police officer hears it, he can arrest me for
right.
making
It's
threats
too
like that.
soon, Brett. It's too soon.
What's Aleppo?
Yeah, I mean, there's
Johnson.
aspects of what you're talking about that I don't necessarily disagree with, but
It would be a project. I'm not saying it wouldn't be a project, but I think
Okay.
it's one that America needs to do. I think, and America needs to lead the way on it, on digital digital citizenship, I guess you could call it. What does that mean? What are the rules? And do we want that to just be in the hands of private entities who have no real oversight from the people? Because I have no real way of affecting what Twitter does or doesn't do. I don't think that's right when they have this much power over public discourse and all these, especially with all these corporations and politicians deferring to what Twitter thinks constantly. Um, why do I not have more say over that then, as a citizen of this country, if they're going to have so much say over everything else? Like, I
Well,
think we have to have
had
those
like, a lot of say
conversations.
over what private companies do. That's a whole different conversation, though, right? That's not.
Well, but again, I don't think Twitter is really a private company. I think it's a distinction without really any difference.
Ooh, they should be absorbed into the federal government.
No,
No.
they should be held under
You
certain
said they're
laws.
not really a private company.
Well,
Yes, I
yes.
see.
What I mean
Well,
is,
we really need to move on, guys.
okay,
I
let's
am
move.
glad that you all agree that I'm right, though. That's a good thing.
I mean, you're
No,
always right.
we always do,
Yes,
You're right about everything.
that's right. Just
I
get
will say,
used to that.
as a final goodbye to this topic, I will be interested to see what Elon does, because he has a bit of an ego to him, and so if he does something, I'm interested to see, like, does he maintain his wherewithal, or does he maintain his guts on it? Because like when Trump launched Truth Social, like they banned a lot of people on there
Yep.
who disparaged Trump, right? And so like right off the bat, like his
Fail.
whole right. So my point is like he could take over the thing, and then people like start giving him a bunch of shit, because we already know that he doesn't take criticism well from the whole shut up pedo guy thing with the tunnel problem, right? So my point is like, are we just going to be in the same situation again with Elon, and you just have a different quote
Yeah.
unquote Jack Dorsey,
different overlord.
That's the
Yeah,
problem.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
That's
problem.
that's what I want to eliminate. I want to eliminate overlords I have absolutely no input into.
Yeah. Well, we are going to move on though, because we do need to get some other topics. It is an interesting conversation though, for sure. Elon Musk in and of himself is an interesting conversation. He's done some cool things. He's also failed a lot. He is kind of full of shit. You do realize this, right? But nevertheless, let's move on. So go ahead, then, Daryl.
Oh, hang on, I'm not looking at that. I was looking at my beautiful wife. She was changing in front of me. I was
Oh
very
yeah, I
distracted.
love when they do that, and then they look
Yeah.
at you like, "What are you looking at?"
Uh huh. Uh huh. what am I looking at here? Draw and talk. This is how you do. Ah, yes, Mr. Sanderson. This is how you do it when you're successful as Sanderson, giving back to the community. He's backing every Kickstarter in the publishing community. Wow, incredible. And if the campaign is close to funding, they'll just be the one who funds it. This man has made me fall in love with him in a fully homosexual way, and I'm not ashamed of it. Not ashamed of it.
Yeah.
This Brandon Sanderson moment here in the whatever you want to call it, the culture war, the zeitgeist, whatever you want to call it, is a bellwether, is a turning point.
I don't even know if he's aware that it exists, to be honest
I
with you.
I think he is, but I think it's more of a tangentially for him. It's not really hit him yet that what he has just done has changed publishing probably forever. It might not. It's going to take a little while, but yeah, he's got what, like $36 million. I think it is. He's at some ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah.
That's serious money that he just raised pretty much all by himself, him and his team.
Yeah.
Like that's insane.
It is. And of course, there's probably a little bit of clapback response here from him, but who cares? It's a cool gesture. And it's just neat because everything that's come out of this, other than the typical screaming harpies, is wonderful. Such a good story. So good on you, dude. Good on you. And he is. He's backing everything on Kickstarter currently. So get on Kickstarter immediately.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's pretty cool. There's not much really to talk about it unless anybody has something they want to say. I just thought it was a cool story that popped up from Somali, I think.
Just really cool of Brandon. He seems like a very good man.
Yeah.
I'm sure if I dug deep enough, I'd find things I disagree with. But so far, he just seems like a good guy.
Yeah, but see,
and
that's the thing. We don't need
he
to
wants
dig.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. That was my point. He presents himself as a very good man, and by all accounts, that's what he is. I don't need to know. That's what I was going to say. You cut me off, Chester. I don't need to know anything more.
Yeah. I mean, we used to have a healthy respect for each other's boundaries in the past.
Privacy.
Yeah.
Old privacy. That old
I
Fourth
think it's
Amendment.
also like, don't take people at their worst, right? Or don't let one thing that you disagree with somebody about like taint your entire perspective about them, right?
Yeah.
Is
And that's
like
the problem.
I think part of the discourse problem that we have nowadays, right? So
yeah, no, and it is a major problem. People going back decades looking at jokes, right? And getting all bent out of shape about it. It's ridiculous. It's just we've kind of lost our way in many ways. But not that has nothing to do with this. Good for you, Mr. Sanderson. Good job, dude.
We need
Congratulations.
more Mr. Sandersons in the world.
Yeah,
That's what we need.
good for him,
Innovators.
man. All right, so let's move on to actual stories. I just thought that would be nice to put up because a lot of happiness coming out of the Sanderson. I like it. All right, go ahead.
Activision Blizzard faces another lawsuit as current female employee alleges sexual harassment, retaliation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress, end quote. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, she probably didn't allege that, but some lawyer definitely did, because
I'm
that is
sure
some lawyer speak.
that is lawyer speak. But here's the thing. Only thing you guys can go into it if you like. The only thing the reason I put this up here for is one thing. Microsoft bought it. I don't even know if the ink's dry, to be honest with you.
It's not really. No.
But Microsoft's bought it, and they are making kind of executive decisions. However, and what they've done is just kind of let it sit. And I have a feeling they're going to come back to it later. Who knows? 5 years from now, I don't know. But they're going to come and take the IP and try to do some cool stuff with it. That's what Microsoft Entertainment would do. I would gather. However, there's such a hostile environment, and we've talked about this before. Not all of it's true. There's a lot of bullshit coming out of Activision Blizzard. It's not
Yep.
all honesty. It's not, and there's people on both sides that are full of it, right? And that includes female accusers, right?
If I had to put on my tinfoil hat for a second, Chester,
Yeah.
it is very convenient that this shitstorm all started right when Microsoft was about to buy him. That's all I'm saying. It's a
Yeah.
real lucky for Microsoft.
But
Real lucky.
But the thing I want, and you're right, but the thing I'm trying to say is this: Microsoft needs to go in there and fire every single solitary person.
Oh, just
Fire
for
everyone.
not even for this reason, but because the
Scorched
games they make are
earth,
terrible now.
dude.
Just get in there and clean house.
I mean, now
That's
Ben,
what they need to do.
you're not involved with this division whatsoever. However, I know, dude, you've got to agree with me. They just need to burn that thing down.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, and again, you talk about, not everything's true, but what of there was that was true was horrible,
It
and
was. Yeah.
there was, I think there was a lot of. Okay, so let's just talk about the video game industry in comparison to other like IT industries, right? I get asked this a lot, like, why didn't you go into video games? Well, you know what? It's just, not the money's not there, right? They take advantage of people,
True.
right, at all levels, right? Um, and then there's crazy schedules and stuff like that, right? But I think for a company as big as Activision Blizzard, right, they've become complacent in their
Hmm.
place in the whole infrastructure, and I think bad habits or bad power structures are allowed to linger and solidify. And um, I just think you're right. I think a complete wiping of the slate and starting
Yep.
over
Yep.
is pretty much what's needed, right? That's
Just
the only way. It's the only way you get away from the stink that it currently has, right? Because that's what it has now is a stink. And you need to just completely like get rid of the old power structure. But it's also how you try to recoup some. I mean, God, remember that that BlizzCon where they tried to get everyone hyped up. Their big announcement was like Diablo on your phone.
yeah, I know. You have phones, don't you? It was so stupid, dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
So no, they have a lot of really good IPs, and there's a lot of like great back end technology and stuff like that. But they just what they need? They need new blood in there, and,
Yep.
and they need to restructure the corporation in such a way that is good for the employees and then good for the
Yeah.
company and stuff.
No,
And
they
that's
just
been a
you're
while.
right, dude. Microsoft just needs to get rid of everybody, get new teams in there, get working now, so that 6 years later you can drop some just really visionary ideas on top of these IPs. That's what they need to do, 100%. Just get away from this nightmare,
Yeah,
because we've seen it. People constantly copycatting and getting on top of. Now, and the ugly thing about it, because you mentioned Diablo, but they have several other screw ups, the Warcraft thing and the Hong Kong activist thing. I mean, there's a bunch of screw ups, right? But here's the thing. Now, this lady that's making these allegations, they could be true, right? They could be true, but I'm not going to believe a word that comes out of her or anybody's mouth over there. None of it, especially after all this nonsense. And what does that do? That hurts her, possibly, right?
yeah,
And this is why they need to just freaking clean the board, dude.
Oh
I
yeah, clean the board. Get everyone because again, the reality is that like you're right, not everything was true, but enough of it was true that it's like
Sure.
just fucking awful, right? And that opens them up to a whole bunch of stuff, because now of enough of what was true that was awful, like again leads the public to not believe you. So if somebody does come and make false claims, like you don't have the public goodwill on your side because you allowed like some pretty fucked stuff to happen, right?
It's true.
So, I think you're right. I think the only way to recoup any sense of normalcy or public trust is just
Yeah.
wipe the slate clean.
Get new
yep.
eyes on it anyway. I mean, there's some pretty cool IPs over there. Just get some new eyes on it and come up with something interesting.
Right.
Brett, you're right, dude.
I
I
want Warcraft
agree.
4. That's what I want.
Well, I want World of Warcraft, and of course that's Ben's fault, by the way. And also, by the way, Ben, I was also surprised that you didn't go into video games actually. But whatever. You made the financially correct choice.
I
But
did make the financial
You
choice,
did.
yeah.
But it's his fault I started playing World of Warcraft. It's 100% Ben's fault.
Yeah, I'll
Oh
take blame.
wow.
Yes.
No,
Wow.
I would love a Warcraft 4. I think it's been long enough that they could make one, set it after WoW, however long they need to, and just give us Warcraft 4 and
We
maybe even bounce into a WoW 2
Yeah.
right off of it.
Just take time, get a new team, develop something really cool. Just be quiet. Let it sit for a while. I mean, while
Yep.
you develop it. Yeah, it'd be awesome.
And
And
go back to your old
honestly of
mantra as
StarCraft.
it's
yeah.
yes, go back to your old mantra of it's done when it's done. Sued trademark, that was the old
Yes.
meme.
Please. Yeah.
And just make games like you used to again. I don't care if it's more expensive. It's real expensive to make games for nobody because then you're just losing money right out of
That's
your
right.
ass.
That's right.
So you're better off rebuilding that trust in your community, rebuilding your audience, rebuilding your brand by just taking a step back, going back to the old motto, the old philosophy, and don't make games necessarily to make money. Make games for the player. True. Right? That was the old way they used to think. They even would say, that was their motto.
Well,
the games are for the player.
There's a lot of that needs to start thinking that way again. And Grimlock, are you petting your cat again?
No, that is not me. I don't have a cat.
All right, I just thought you were.
No, that's my cat. I don't know why she's
pet
while
pussies again. You know how Grimlock is.
Hey.
Hey,
that is what's best in life.
That is what's best in life. That's true. The quote from Conan. That was a great movie. You should go watch it. But I'm going to move on. But yeah.
I would say this about Activision. I agree with you guys completely. The slate does need to be wiped completely clean, because how the hell did you allow, like, okay, the lawsuits aside, just look at where this company was 15 years ago and look at where it is now. I mean,
legend.
15 years ago, they was churning out on a consistent basis some of the best games you could ask for.
Yep.
And I know that Activision and Blizzard were separate entities at the time, but even still, 15 years ago, World of Warcraft was like a phenomenon.
It was. Yeah.
It was everywhere. I mean, to hell, South Park made an episode about it. You know, that's how big it was at the time. Activision was putting out so many good games, and I mean, just before they became the Call of Duty factory, where you had these excellent Marvel games.
That was a mistake. Yeah.
You actually made excellent Transformer games, which I was wondering if it would ever happen in my lifetime. They just felt. I mean, at one point, you could argue they was probably one of the best gaming publisher at the time, and to look at where they were then and where they are now, it's kind of unbelievable.
It's
and the fact that the CEO was allowed to stay as long as he did in the midst of all of this fucking chaos is kind of mind-boggling when you think about it.
It is, but I kind of wonder though, Grimlock, because you're right, especially with the CEO guy who seems to be the most egregious. I don't know. See, the thing is, is the ink actually dry? Is it 100% in Microsoft's pocket yet? Is the question.
No, it's supposed to be 2023, like April.
There's your answer.
It's supposed to be finished.
Well, it has to go through federal review, right? Because anytime you have a merger of this size, it has to be approved by the federal government, right? You know, so
my response to them is. My response to them about that is you're pretending to be worried about Microsoft now. You let the Disney deal go through. AT&T still exists the way it is. Now you're pretending to be worried about companies having too big of a market share. Well, that just sounds like there's not enough kickbacks coming from Microsoft to the government. That's what that sounds like to me.
Well, I mean, Microsoft doesn't have much in the government ever since the whole IE debacle. So
yeah, that's true. The government didn't have it out for him for a minute.
They did, yeah.
The thing that, the thing that annoys me about that is like then they release like the Chrome OS, which is nothing but the browser, and nobody blinks an eye, right? Whatever, it's fine.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll move on from this. But
Blizzard used to be one of the three Bs, I used to call them: Blizzard, Bethesda, and BioWare. And they just did for about 10 years. They just didn't miss.
Just good stuff. Well, Bethesda would be on the bottom of that, but I did always look forward to their stuff. But yeah, no.
Yeah, you couldn't wait.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I mean, when Microsoft does get control of this company, though, I really hope they just wipe it clean. I just really hope they do, because as it sits, because everyone, that's why I asked the question, because everyone kind of thinks they already own it, and they're throwing blame, because this article is throwing blame at Microsoft, right? And I'm like, what? So anyway, moving on. But God, what a disaster, dude.
Todd McFarlane reveals that corporations are systematically removing firearms from action figures, reveals his creative workaround to their agenda.
Yeah,
Oh
no.
boy.
Now, this is part of the same interview which you had the flare up, and I decided just to do them together in this one article, where
Yeah.
he said that well, boys really aren't interested in buying so many of those female action figures. So many, not any, so many. And of course, he's right. And they're pushing back, saying, just making all this typical noise we see out of the noisemakers. However, I think they've all missed the mark on that particular point because I don't think these companies are making all these female action figures and pushing, whatever the studios are pushing, and then they're making the toys. I don't think they're making all these female action figures for the boys to buy anyway. They're making it because they want to draw more girls in. They just aren't. I'm sure they've drawn some, but nowhere near as much as they want. So I kind of think they're missing the point on both sides are missing the point of it because I really don't think these companies are thinking, yeah, the boys going to love all these chick things. No, of course they're not. They're just trying to draw more women into the IP, which is what Disney has been doing the whole time. Whether it be with Marvel or Star Wars, they just let people in charge that went way, way beyond the pale. But that's what they wanted to do because especially with Star Wars and Marvel to a point, these are male brands. If you remember when they bought Star Wars, they said in very directly in their initial comments that they wanted to get a boy IP on board because they already had the
Yep.
princess thing. That's what they said. They know what they're dealing with. But somewhere along the lines, they decided, well, let's try to see if we can't pull some of that other 50% of the demographic in for us. That's one. Secondly, of course, they're going after the firearms, and here's a good example. There are many here, but here's a good example of it. And Todd McFarlane, who makes great toys, been doing it for a long time, has no say in the matter, and he said so. But yeah, Peacemakers has a sword. Stupid. But this is not the first time this has happened. Keep that in mind.
Looks
They,
ridiculous.
it is so
Well,
stupid.
it's just this example you have of Peacemaker is doubly stupid because that's Peacemaker from the Suicide Squad,
Yeah.
which is not a kids movie.
Nope.
No.
It is absolutely not a kids movie,
Nope.
right? So what are we doing?
Well,
Because
you know,
excluding the guns is stupid because it's like not even because the only argument could be like, oh, we don't want to like have violence in front of the kids, and I could understand an argument for that. Whatever. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I can understand the argument. But like that movie was not for kids.
nope.
Kids should not see it. It is rated R. This is obviously for adults, right? And I know plenty of adults who buy this stuff. It's
Sure.
up at Dragon's Lair and stuff like that. So I don't understand. Like, what are we doing with this? Like, what is this?
Yeah. No.
I
It
don't get.
it reeks of, if I can put on the old tinfoil hat again, it
Oh god.
reeks of
Look at
social
Grifter.
engineering.
So stupid, dude.
Like, what do they think is going to happen here? That if a kid buys a toy, right, or a parent buys a toy for a kid that has a gun, they're just going to go shoot up a school? Like, that's not how that works.
No.
It's so dumb. It's
But
kind of like when people say video games cause violence. No, they don't.
this comes
That's not
around.
how violence works,
This comes
guys.
around every decade, though. They
No,
did
Oh,
this in the mid '70s. They did this in the '80s and the '90s, et cetera, et cetera. Every decade, there's a span of a year
I
or so
remember.
where they come after the guns. It's
I
always
remember. They were clutching pearls when I was a kid about Looney Tunes cartoons being too violent. I
yeah,
remember hearing people talk about that on the news, and I just, even as a kid, I was like, "What?"
yeah. They always were.
Everybody know this isn't what violence is. If I drop an anvil on someone's head, they're dead. As a child, I knew that. Like it wasn't. Ah,
Yeah.
ah.
And I do love the fact that old McFarlane there just threw him 100% completely under the bus. He said, "Yep, they told me I couldn't, so I didn't. Yep, 100% under the
Yeah.
bus. Awesome."
Well, it's dumb. It's the same. I guess you could say circular arguments you keep running into every so often, like you said. It's an argument founded in feeling, and we have more data and statistics that have long pointed to the opposite being true in all of
Sure.
these cases.
Yep.
It's really ridiculous. It's basically it's a way to say, well, we're not responsible because we didn't put it there. Okay, fine. Um, the other part of it also is, at least with like with the female characters, is Well, if you look at the action figures as a whole, that has become more of a collector's thing than a kid's thing nowadays. Kind of
It
like the
has.
comic industry in
That's
general,
true. Yeah.
where you want a good action figure of a particular character, male or female, it's going to cost you.
Yeah, but
You're going to spend some money.
no, that's true.
So
And well, hold on a second. I have a question for you on that, and I have a question for all of you in regard to that because we all agree on the gun thing. And it's dumb. It'll go away and it'll come back.
yeah,
It's just the way it is. But the female thing, I am curious what you think about this because the simple but because they're the narrative that from what Todd McFarlane had said, and then all the kickback from the Twitterati and all that kind of stuff. It's all about men must like female stuff. We must change men. It's all about this pseudo fourth wave non-feminist feminism,
well,
right? But
well,
I don't think that's the truth when it comes from the toy company. I think they're actually promoting more female toys because they're trying to pull the girls in to the market. Is what that's my
well,
question. Do you disagree or do
well,
you agree?
I don't disagree, but like I was saying that we have the data and statistics that point to the contrary. One of the things that we have as far as data, we know that for the most part, the comics industry and I guess you could say by proxy, their toys fail because by the time girls are old enough to discover manga, they know about the comics. They
Yep.
just do, and all the pander and I'm just gonna say it's pandering what they're doing, and even the girls know it because if you have something that is cool, whether it's male or female, they'll gravitate to it.
Yeah.
Girls, they love Sailor Moon. You put Sailor Moon anything in front of a 10-year-old girl, moth to a flame. That's just what it's gonna be.
Mhm.
30-year-old
And
woman.
you could,
Life loves Sailor Moon.
yeah, yeah, and you can sit there and you can uh, do all these little things that they have done over the last 20 years, and all of them have failed.
Right.
And the same thing goes with the toys. And proof of it is if you look at Marvel historically, where is most of their female interest lies? Mostly in one team. You
Right.
take the X-Men out of the equation,
That's
where
true.
the most popular females in Marvel's lineup mostly resides. It's about 80% of Marvel's most popular females are all on one team. You take them out of the equation, men and women ain't really buying it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're
Nope.
now you're
They showed that. Look how quickly the Captain Marvel merch went straight to clearance, and how quickly the Eternals
well,
crap has gone straight to clearance.
sure,
So,
you're not answering my question, but that's okay. The
well,
Sailor Moon, but no, let me take your example and give it an example of the example. Sailor Moon.
all right.
Sailor Moon works, and Rey from Star Wars doesn't, or
Yeah.
this stupid version of Captain Marvel or what have you. And let's look at why. Because Sailor Moon, they're action heroes. They do save the day, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
they are also girls. They also like looking
Yeah.
pretty. They like the little sparkly makeups. They like that boy. He's so cute, right? So
Yes.
it's touching on what girls like and being heroic, right? So it works, and it always works. Sailor Moon is been around for how many decades, and it's still kicking, right?
Yeah.
Ray is not that. She's the
Yeah.
opposite. Matter of fact, they tried to make her as boyish as possible, and they've been doing the same
Yeah.
thing. She-Hulk. We're not going to get the cool She-Hulk from the past. The She-Hulk we're going to get is this new one who likes TV cooking shows, is a lesbian, and looks more Hulkish than the Hulk, right? They're not doing it right. If they took the female character and made her feminine and heroic, they would be selling.
Yeah.
Can I
And
borrow
that.
Pondero's tinfoil hat for a moment?
Go
You
ahead.
can have
Uh,
mine as well.
Yep.
so I'm gonna go a different angle on this,
Uh-oh.
and my proposal is I think what they're trying to do is because a lot of markets used to be niche markets. You were going for
Niche.
boys age. yeah, age 16 to 24 or something like that, right?
Right.
And I think this is a repercussion of the changes in movies where they just go very broad now. And so I think part of this is them saying, okay, well, we want a very broad market, and so we're going to make changes to appeal to the broadest market we can, like
Hmm.
I don't want to say the lowest common denominator, but like the market that we think is the flattest market, right? On a chart of like who you're appealing to, right? There'll be a spike in your age range, and the statistics of who you're going, and they want a flat market in that they appeal across the board to all demographics and stuff, right? And so I think changes like this are designed to try to flatten out their market so that they have more appeal, and it's just being done very ham-fistedly.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that I agree with that
but
100%.
but a
Yeah.
but a flat market's a boring market because you're not attracting
Well,
anybody.
which is his point is Grimlock that because it's flat, they're trying to raise it up to make more money out of it.
Yeah, and and
Yeah,
and
The whale
and the
hunting.
point to your Star Wars example, Ray. Yeah, you're right. Ray failed miserably, but the opposite of that, Cara Dune, was wildly successful.
right. No, and it did work because they weren't selling
Yeah,
you anything, right? But yeah, no, I agree. Elrod doesn't agree, so we're back to normal. Whew, I was worried there for a second. Um, Uh, but I really think that they could have they did ham fist it, as what Ben had said. They could have done it smarter and had more success. If you Ray's a good example because if you had made Ray more feminine, a heroic female, right?
yeah.
It would have done way better. But they didn't. They basically wanted to make her him was the whole thing, and they basically it was just replacing Luke with a female, but not really. It's like
Well, and
half a replacement.
here's a great counter, if you will. Not really a counter to what you're saying, but a counter to that idea. So the new Batman movie, Catwoman. She's not masculine. She's extremely feminine. In fact, I'd say she's hyper feminine in many instances. Um, and it works beautifully.
Hmm.
And Zoe does a great job with it. And I think she's probably far more popular because of it. And I think one of the things that they have to remember is that masculine doesn't equal strong.
No,
Feminine women can be just as strong, and I'm going to put my feminist hat on for a minute. Can be just as
give
strong,
it
but they're
back,
not strong
Ben.
in this. They're not strong in the same way. It's a different kind of
Sure.
strength, and
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. That's what makes the human race, exist. Is the fact that we're both strong in our own ways and utilize it to overcome nature. Because nature's a bitch, and she's trying to kill us.
She
Uh,
is.
and I think that's what they've forgotten. And I think when you try a one size fits all approach, sure you cast a wide net and maybe you get some fish and maybe even catch some whales. But what you don't get is you don't get long lasting uh, success. You don't get
Yeah.
that classic feeling, right?
The
Like
iconic.
all of
Yeah.
us here, yes, an iconic nature. All of us here have movies and things, TV shows, whatever, that we can go back to and watch and just watch and watch and watch and watch. For whatever reason, there's something about
Dun,
it
dun,
that appeals
dun, dun,
directly
dun,
to us.
dun,
Yep.
dun, 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 dun.
These
Sorry.
modern ones though, how many times most of like the MCU, right? Most of those movies are like one and dones for most people. They
Sure.
watched it once and they're like, okay, maybe twice, and then they're like, okay. There's very few of them that are that kind of a movie that you can just watch over and over and over again. And there's a reason for that. And one of the main reasons is the broad appeal writing and the formula. It's not designed to be that sort of movie, so that's not the sort of movie it is. It's not designed to get you invested in the movie. It's designed to get you invested in the universe, and that's exactly what it does. And in the character, so that they can move forward into bigger properties. It was a brilliant thing that Disney did. No, don't get me wrong; they did it beautifully. They did a fantastic job with the MCU, at least up until recently. And I think that's the biggest problem. I think we need to just defer to the most successful movie producer of a singular franchise of all time, George Lucas. And his motto was, if you make it for a 12 to 15-year-old boy, you make it for everybody. Because if it's good, anybody can watch it.
Mhm. Yeah, it really was a shame with Star Wars. It was really a shame. Well, the first mistake was J.J. Abrams. That was
Yeah.
mistake number one. But you should have had him as a cinematographer, but not in charge. But it really is a shame because because Ray could have been a cool character. Finn was the
Sure.
best character that came out of the first
Oh, by
movie,
far.
but
By far.
they threw him aside for some reason. What happened with that? Why did they do that? He was
China.
certainly the most interesting character, and they just threw him to the side. What? Why?
Had to be China.
Because China.
Jesus, it's a shame
They don't
because he
like
was
the
a
blacks
cool
in
character.
China. They don't
Well,
like
that
them.
goes back to the point, though. They threw him away because of China, so they're trying to appeal to a broader
Broad
market.
audience. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Just
I get
stop.
it. Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah.
That's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah, yeah. And that they're just doing it in a very, as you said, ham-fisted way, and that's not the way to do it. It's just a real
Well,
shame. Yeah.
well, one question I would ask them that I would like to ask these big companies because they don't seem to understand what's wrong with the niche market.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I don't
another
know.
thing too. Yeah.
What's wrong? What's wrong with saying okay? Instead of getting 10 million people, we'll get 9 million people. Are you really that upset over the 1 million?
Right.
Right.
And
Because
they do it so
we,
egregiously that they lose that 9 million anyway.
Yeah, or a
because
big chunk of
because
it.
like Thundaro said, you have something formulaic. What you don't get, which niche markets have always gotten, and it's been proven. You can look at anything over time. What you get is brand loyalty, which I
Right.
thought was the end goal for these people.
Right.
Mhm.
Where
And
they
here's
keep
a
coming
perfect
back,
example of what you're
like
talking about.
for
Oh,
example,
God.
pickup
This
trucks.
show.
Pickup trucks were niche markets, right? Because
Yep.
not everybody at one time needed pickup trucks, but
Yeah.
look at them now.
Yeah.
Pickup trucks sell in the hundreds of thousands
And they
yearly,
don't need them.
and now they're all
Still don't need 'em.
and the majority of the people who own them now don't need
They
them.
don't need them.
Whereas back in the day when they first started, most of the people who bought them actually needed them.
Sure. But I mean, get an
Farmers and
So
SUV, keeps your shit dry. I mean, come on.
Anyway,
but
moving
it
on.
worked.
It
In
did.
the same vein, Halo, in this headline by Slade Hale, which is a great name. That should be a villain name. Halo, another TV show ruined by identity politics and bad writing. Now, I haven't seen it. I've seen clips of it, so I don't
Yeah.
know if that's true or not, but I do know the clips I've seen are just how you spent $10 million an episode on this and got that. Somebody's laundering some money or something, because
Something's
that doesn't
going
even make
on. Yeah.
sense.
We talked about this, with Paramount, who doesn't have money to spend, is throwing money away on this. $100 million is wasted on this, and they don't even have it to spend. And this is as bad as The Last Jedi. That's how bad the SJW wokeness is in it. It's that level, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we
that's what I
see a
hear.
lot of little things here or there, and it's like, whatever. It's bad level. The writing is really bad. It's a complete lack of understanding of Halo, 100% misunderstanding. But of course, we know that because they told us that they didn't even bother to read any of the Halo stuff because they didn't want to be polluted. Not even the directors and the writers. So they have no clue what they're doing. The CG is not even good. How in the
No,
hell
it's
are you
horrible.
spending $10-20 million an episode with bad CG? I don't get that.
Where'd that money go?
Where'd that
Genuinely,
money
because it's not
go?
like they have some giant name star of this thing, right? They didn't pull in Tom Cruise to play Master Chief or something.
Oh,
So
that
where'd
would have
all
been a
that
good
money go?
idea. That would have been a good idea, dude.
It would have been a show. It would have been something to watch.
No,
I don't know
it
if it would
would.
have been good Halo, but it would
Well,
have been
yeah, but
something
you
to
couldn't do
watch.
Tom because he's not going. He's going to leave that take that helmet off. But they took it off
Yep.
anyway.
Yep.
But here's the thing. Going with Grimlock was just saying. Here you have a built-in audience, built-in, right? And we've already got
We've
some
been
cool
waiting.
Halo stuff.
Bro, we've been waiting for so long for something good live action Halo.
Yes, I
Since
know.
Halo freaking 1, people have been wanting it. And it just never materialized. And it materialized. Oh boy, did it materialize.
Yeah, and it's really bad. Basically, in this episode, you have a bunch of women talking to women, and they completely disregard and talk down to the men all the time. It's pure
Ugh.
fourth wave feminist nonsense.
And,
And it's like, if you want to go that route, fine, but you just threw away an entire market of people who would come watch your shit. And we were talking about. I'm going to let you talk in a minute, Grimlock. But we were talking about the fact that, hey, what if you just did the Spartans or you did the Marines or something like that, right? And you
Oh,
could have
TFT.
all kinds of races and people, and you could have been cool. It would have been fun. But nope, 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 nope. Go ahead, Grimlock.
it's again. It's like going playing the same play again out of the same playbook. and I know some people will say, "Oh, you guys have a problem with women in strong power." No, we
No,
don't, because if
nope,
anybody knew the Halo lore,
yep.
one of the most central and interesting characters in all of Halo lore is fucking Dr. Halsey.
And she
She's
is in it.
fucking amazing as a character,
Yeah, she
but
is in it.
you couldn't even get her right, and then the fact that you made this generic Asian woman to be the main character because you needed a female soldier when Chief's fire team had two in Linda and Kelly. You just completely shat on them two.
Right. But I
The
mean,
biggest
And
problem,
then
right?
going back to the Asian woman, what is up with Hollywood uglying up Asian women?
well,
This is starting to not
that
be a coincidence,
that
because the
is
way they
another
got this
thing. Yeah.
woman looking,
That is true. She looks
um,
really bad. But to be fair, though, if they had made Master Chief and had him
Yeah.
helping this girl around, he saw some potential in her, there would be nothing wrong with that. It would have been fine.
Yep.
But of course, the whole thing is that he's basically rebelling against the entire institution because they said, she's not going to lie for us. So you got to kill her. I mean, this is the writing that is going on here. This is the writing. To
it,
Master Chief, you
which
got to kill that innocent. Get him, Master Chief.
which
What?
What?
which we've
What?
seen before.
What?
You know, we've seen this writing, and we've seen this writing before. It's like, how do you guys hire this?
It's
Oh
sad,
no.
dude. It's sad. I'm sorry, Ben. Go ahead, dude.
It,
Oh,
Oh, I mean, I'm not really a Halo guy, so I don't really have much opinion either way on this one.
Yeah,
So
but
if
you
it's
you have an opinion
wait,
about
wait,
throwing away
hold on,
your built-in audience, don't you?
hold on, Ben. That's perfect right there, because one of the arguments that they made it was, well, why would we adapt? Um, why would we adapt the games? Why would we adapt the books? Because there's 20 years of books and comic books that most people have never read. I'm including half the people who play Halo have never
never read.
read. And
right.
and it's like, oh, why would we adapt these? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? It's there. You could have done Fall of Reach. You could have done Forward Onto Dawn. You
Oh,
could have
dude,
done
Fall of Reach would have
Escalation.
been
You
awesome, man.
Fall of Reach would have been awesome. Fall of Reach is probably the
right there.
best story in all of Halo.
Your first season right there could have been
Yep.
Fall of Reach,
It
and
should have been.
you'd have had guys like Ben. You'd have had guys like me. You'd have had the hardcore Halo fans. Right there, your 10
You do
million would
Fall
have
of
been
Reach right into
fine.
Master Chief, just like the Halo story.
Yeah.
That's money. You're just
Money,
printing money
money,
now.
money. Yeah, yeah. Because
Nope.
yeah, I get it. But I'm just saying that I'm taking more the angle of why are you throwing away your built-in audience? Because they're doing it, and this
Chasing the
is
mythical
super
audience.
egregious with this one.
Chasing the
And a
mythical
very
audience.
rabid tentacle.
Yeah.
It's a problem across all of entertainment. I don't know where it originates from. I have some theories, but it needs to stop. These people have to stop chasing this unicorn audience that's out there. That we're gonna get the big audience. What does that even mean? You already, first of all, he already has a freaking humongous audience.
Sure.
Humongous audience. It's one of the biggest game franchises of all time. It's in the probably top 5. Like, what are you talking about? Video games are the number one entertainment media in the world, and it's not even close. What are you talking about? Halo already has a huge audience. So what? How wide of a net do you need? You need to get all 8 billion people or whatever it is on the planet? I don't understand that argument. It's a non-argument. It's just an excuse so they can change the things that they want to change for whatever reason, whether it's agenda or just corporate nonsense. And it's never works. It never works. I cannot
Well,
think of a single time where that was the excuse for them making certain changes that it worked.
yeah, and especially with Halo, there's already diversity in it.
Oh, it's super diverse, and
I mean,
nobody
what are you
cares.
talking about? I mean, but it's just it's just like the same thing they did with the Eternals. You already have a team made up of people from all over the world. That was the idea,
Yep.
pantheons, right? The inception thought of the pantheons coming out of these Eternal characters, right? You already had it, and then they went and race swapped and gender swapped everything back to already what you had, just in different names. It's
No,
like, why?
no,
It didn't make any sense. It's just because they can, and but that's a different conversation from the
and
initial point and the fact that you had a built-in audience. All you had to do, and you could have left that girl in there. You could have told a story with her in there, no problem. But at least give the audience what they want.
They should have just made her
And,
like, which she kind of sounds like she is, but in a very egregious way. Basically, the MacGuffin, right, of the show.
Yeah.
And okay, fine, but you don't have to if you don't want to tell one of the other stories from the games or the books or whatever. Okay, I think that's silly, but okay. But why not bring in more of Chief's people? Why not bring in his whole team? Why not have it be
yeah,
a whole thing? Why you don't? There's just so many better ways to have done this,
Yep.
and you can tell that whoever made this decision at 343 Studios to sell this to Paramount to do it, I'm assuming that's who it was, is just an idiot. There's no other way to put it. It was stupid. It was a bad idea.
Yeah.
They if you're going to make live action Halo, first impression is going to matter, and you've blown it. Now we'll
Yeah.
probably never get a good one.
And it's
Ever.
really badly
le-
written, dude. There's plot holes all over the place, and it's only a 50-minute show.
Ugh.
all
I
right,
mean,
and going back to the fan base, I just looked this up real quick. As of the end of January, Halo Infinite had 20 million sales.
Yeah.
That was their latest
yeah,
game.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
You take even half of that, and you know a lot of people who, like I said, don't play Halo, have never read the books, never read the comics, but they like sci-fi. You'd have made this good.
Yeah.
You already coming in with that kind of fan base, and then plus the new people you could have drawn in. You had it there,
Yeah.
and it keeps happening over and over again. I like I said before, I believe this is fucking money laundering at this point.
Uh,
There's no way you can intentionally
Waste
fuck
that kind
shit
of
up
money.
like this over and over again, and
yeah,
it's more than one company do this.
and I like we talked about with Paramount. Paramount's in real deep shit, dude. They're really not doing well, and they've cut off $100 million, which I don't think they have to make this show this season. And it's so poorly done with really bad CG. Where's the money going?
Oh man, the CG is
It's
horrible in
really
this.
bad. The Elite. Did you
It,
see the
it
Elite?
looks like it came from the original Xbox.
Did you
Some of it. It's
the
bad.
the clip with the assault rifle being thrown down? It's just, oh my god,
It's
it's
it's really bad.
horrible.
But I mean, the Elite. I mean, we saw better CG 30 years ago. I'm
Yep.
like,
Yes.
what are you doing, man? I don't know.
And what
I
It's
happened
don't
to
get it.
practical effects?
I don't get it, man. It's
Could
such
we
a
not
shame.
get some like tall, like out of work wrestlers to get in the costume and be the elite? Could we not?
especially for
Such
that money. Yeah. Anyway, it's just another symptom, right? It's another symptom of all this just stupidity, dude, and wasting of money. Because you had a built-in audience right there, and you just threw that away, dude. That's dead. Anyway, let's move on here. Let's see here. I thought this was an interesting thing, and I've been triggered. I got triggered a couple times today. Go ahead.
Oh, oh boy. North American Simulation and Gaming Association author, wow, woof, claims Dungeons and
That's
Dragons
a mouthful.
promotes race essentialism because, quote, humans cannot realistically imagine a completely disconnected reality, end quote.
Okay.
How, wait a minute, wait a minute.
I'm
Huh?
I'm cracking my neck. I'm
Mm,
I'm, I'm getting ready. Okay.
I need to know,
my
I
head
need
hurts.
to know what those two things have to do with each other.
Well,
Just,
well, let's take the conceit here, and this is why psychiatry is full of shit.
it
Um,
is.
uh, Race essentialism, because humans cannot realistically imagine a completely disconnected reality. Let's translate that. Because you're human, you can't see anything that's not your race as being good. Okay. Here we have a psychologist. His name
Uh,
is Clayton Whittle, or either a ginger, and that's the problem because he's been picked on his whole life for being a ginger, and he wants revenge. But no, this is complete and utter bullshit. Because what you're suggesting, if you believe it, makes your argument therefore also moot.
correct.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It self-defeating.
It's an unclosed loop, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense. Because the reality is, and this is the problem, and because I've heard this psychological argument before. When I was in school, you guys know I study anthropology. When I was in school, and I still hear this argument today because I still get all the quarterlies from the school, from my school and stuff like that, and other places. You have this argument going, this psychiatric argument going on all the time, saying that race, race, race. They're always pushing race, race, race. But of course, that's not the reality whatsoever. And if you go and ask an actual anthropologist, and not talking to some pseudoscientist, they will tell you race has nothing to do with anything. What it
Yep,
is culture.
that's right.
Yeah,
Race is just a classification, basically, on paper, for the most part. I mean, obviously, they exist insofar as that's why the classification exists, but for the most part, it's largely superfluous. And when you obsess over it, like this gentleman is here, you become a very ugly person. I hate to tell people this. It just becomes a very ugly situation for you because you're putting all of this weight onto something that is very hard to even quantify. What does that mean, race essentialism? Humans cannot realistically imagine a completely disconnected reality. Are you implying that race is fundamental to our reality? Because I don't
well,
think that's true.
that's it is part of his conceit, but he's also thinking that you can't. He basically is saying is you can't think beyond your own race, is what he's
Which is
ultimately saying
preposterous.
here, which is preposterous because
I
race
mean,
has
maybe
nothing to do
he's
with it.
never been around other races, so maybe
Well,
he can't,
well,
but I have, and I can.
of
I don't
course,
know.
it's ridiculous because let's take an example. Let's look at the Anatolian, nomads, right? Take the
Yeah,
Anatolian nomads. Take the Phoenicians. Well, we call them the Phoenicians. They didn't call themselves that. But take the Phoenicians, take the Sumerians or Shumerians, and take the Cometians, and even later Carthage. But that's still Phoenicians anyway. But take those groups, right?
yeah,
They're all racially identical. They're all
right.
coming out of the Aryan migrations. They're all identical, but yet they hated each other with such a passion they could constantly making war with each other all the damn time. Why? Because their cultures were different.
That's right.
Has nothing to do with race. But I've heard this argument my whole life, and it's always been stupid to me because it doesn't make sense. And of course, why Mister Twittle, whatever the hell your name is, Whittle,
Well,
why is it that you've decided to pick on the D&D? Why is everyone just dogpiling on the D&D? Because it's a fantasy game. We have bad guys because we need bad guys to fight, man. Don't you get it?
well, not
God
only that,
damn it.
it's silly when, especially the argument that we've all. I don't know if Ben's seen it, but I know we three have seen it. People will say that orcs somehow are an equivalent to like
Black
black people,
people, yeah, it's weird.
and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
I don't think there's a
especially
single person besides the person who said that who's played D&D or looked at an orc in any other form of
yeah,
fantasy literature or whatever and be like, yeah, that's an African
yeah.
right there.
Especially because I had one of my favorite characters of all time was a black paladin who rode a giant dire boar into battle,
Yeah, I
and I
like black
killed many
paladins.
orcs with that.
I'm writing a book about a black paladin, Chester.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
I like black
But I'm
paladins.
just, but
I want to know
Ben,
what drug did
well,
that guy have to be on to look
uh,
at an orc
not the best
and
ones,
look at
I
a
would say.
black person and said, "Boom, same thing."
Yeah.
That's the same thing.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
But Ben, you got to stand up and defend the D&D. I know you do.
Well, so again, this is where we get into problems of people kind of making ham-fisted commentary, right? So if
Yep.
we look back to the history of Dungeons and Dragons, I could see there being an argument made because back in the old Dungeons and Dragons, there would be very clear lines like goblins are always evil, orcs
Sure.
are always evil, right? And so if you want to talk about old Dungeons and Dragons and very much cornering specific races into specific alignment categories, yeah, it's definitely criticisms that to be made. But the reality
Why?
is that
Why? It's just a thing to fight, though, dude. It's just the
Wait,
mechanic.
wait, wait.
well,
Anyway,
Ben,
I'm
ben,
sorry.
can
I'm
I ask,
sorry. Go ahead, dude.
can I ask the? Wait, I just want to ask the question. What's wrong with that?
well,
Like,
so
what's wrong with the goblins and orcs always being an evil? Like,
well, one from a storytelling perspective, it's boring, right? So like some of the best stories have been about characters of those races who weren't evil, like Dritz Durden, right?
Sure.
Like Drow were always evil except for Dritz. And you could going back to what you were talking about, cultural, like if you go back into the Drow stuff, it was definitely cultural for why
Oh
they were
yeah.
evil, right? and their
Mm.
worship of the spider gods and goddesses and stuff like that, right? So why would they always be evil? Why wouldn't it be the externalities of their stuff that would make them evil? I think that's perfectly fine to have story elements to make them evil, but having it written into the rules X, Y, or Z, race, unless it's like a demon or something like that, something from the abyss or what have you, but like a normal humanoid, race that is on the whatever planet or what have you. Again, they can be evil due to like the culture around them. Again, drows or even orcs. Like they belong to a savage tribe that likes to go around and kill people and will have you. That's fine, but hard
Yeah.
coding them, right? What we're talking about is hard coding them to be evil. And you would get into awkward conversations with dungeon masters. I want to play a goblin. Well, goblins are always evil. And this is a good campaign, right? Well, that's boring, right?
Sure.
But
And of
my
course it can be adjusted as time go by, and it has been.
that's
That's not
gonna be
the
my
point.
final
The
point
point
is
is
that
saying that it's racism somehow is stupid.
again, I think the criticism is, I'm not going to say 100% valid, but is more valid if you're looking at D&D 30 years ago. Nowadays, D&D and Pathfinder, they've moved on from this
Way
conversation.
past it. Yeah.
They're way past it. They don't do alignment, enforcement on a lot of the humanoid races anymore. Again, like, elementals are always going to be neutral, demons are always going to be evil, blah 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 blah, right? But we've moved on from this, so like it's not a relevant conversation anymore within the zeitgeist of the tabletop community, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I historically played a
Okay,
good
okay.
orc, with Korlak. That's
Sure.
my freaking thing, right?
Yeah.
So I find it more interesting, like
I got another question, if you
go
don't
for it.
mind.
Sure.
Um, all right. Now the orcs and demons, okay, wanting to do different campaigns with them. I'm on board with that completely. But where the black people, orcs and goblins allegory metaphor, wherever
Yeah.
they're trying to construe this argument,
That's the
because
issue right
I'm
there. Yeah.
I'm black. I'm black, and I've never once looked at and I like goblins and orcs, and I've never looked at them and said, "That's me and my people."
Grimlock, so when you look in the mirror, you don't see an orc? Because these guys tell me that has to be what you're looking at.
Yes.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
no, not even close.
Huh.
I'm more of a petty, untalented version of Heavy D than an orc.
Fair enough. Heavy D was badass. I'm a bugbear, so
Uh,
you have that.
you are a living human bugbear. That is
Yeah.
correct.
Yes.
No,
I'm sorry, Ben. You were trying to say
I'm just
something.
trying to, because I've seen this argument come up these last few years, and I'm looking at it because I've never been a D&D player, but most people, if you into the fantasy realm, you've seen goblins and orcs at some point, and I've just never, up until recently, seen or heard those comparisons being made. So I'm trying to figure out, where did that come from?
Right. And what's happening, Grimlock, is Ben's argument is what his argument is actually what's happened over the past so many decades in gaming.
Right.
And things have changed because role playing has changed. I mean, you got freaking Fate now. I mean, look at how that game goes about role playing. So we inside the hobby have already had these conversations. This racism accusation is bullshit, and it's
Yeah.
just nonsense trying to grab headlines. It's clickbait.
Yeah.
But however, to go back, Ben, I understand what you're saying, but back in those days, D&D had not evolved to what it is today, and it was just plug and
No
play,
shit. Yeah.
thing. But think about how long ago it did change. Greenwood came out with the Faerun series with Forgotten Realm stuff, right? And what did he build into that, right? You had the standard green orcs who were, I mean, like you played a half orc named, technically in game mechanics, Korlak. But Korlak is an orc because all orcs are an example of rape. Green orcs, all of them. That's how they breed. They raid and breed. That's what the orcs do, right? Females don't really survive very long in that culture. However, what did he do to juxtapose against that? Because he probably saw the same thing we're talking about. He brought in down in the with the Netherese, through their old gates, they brought in the gray orcs. right? And the gray orcs are completely different. They're just a society of orcs from a
Well, that's the
different
point. Is
world,
that it's
right?
culture. It's
Yeah,
culture,
it's
right?
culture.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so the point is this dude's having a 30-year-old conversation, right?
he is. Yeah,
And again, it was a more valid conversation 30 years ago. It's not a valid conversation now. We've moved on from this conversation,
yep,
and everyone, there's been adjustments made, and we've agreed, like, it's culture, not race anymore. To answer your conversation, Grimlock, mostly this is an opinion of orcs being analogous to the blacks. It's not from D&D. It's mostly from interpretations of Tolkien mythology, but even then I think it's a misinterpretation because he did
it
have
is.
he when God, where was it? Was it from the east? I believe there was a society, a cultural society
Correct.
of black nomads and stuff like that. So again, I think it's a misappropriation. Even like if you go by the Lord of the Rings movies, those were Maori, right? Not black actors or anything playing the orcs in those
Sure.
films, right?
Yeah, but
Correct.
So
even straight out of the Tolkien, though, the orcs are tainted and polluted elves by
oh,
Morgoth.
yeah,
They're
yeah, I know.
elves.
It's a it's a ham-fisted look at the mythology for the most part,
Well,
right?
the other thing we have to remember, and these people, because, well, they're dumb, don't understand, is back in the day, when they would use, and even in most modern games, when you use race in that context is supposed to be allegorical to cultures. That's why so many of them basically are cultures from this world or derivations of it. That's what they're using, and they're just using a fantastical version of it. Because the reality is, for the most part, a lot of these races wouldn't be considered that if they existed in our world. They'd be different species because they are different
I know what
species.
you're
They're not the
saying,
same.
but as a guy who's been playing this for a very long time, that line was not always very well established or written out explicitly, right?
Well, it doesn't
So
need to be explicitly. The reason why
yeah,
it existed that way, though, is because it was just simpler. It was easier to classify with race because it wasn't as loaded of a term, and for the audience that it was being presented to, and that's why they did it. It's kind of like if you were to go back 200 years and you were to make some fiction about God. If you said God, everybody would know what you meant, right? They would know you meant the God of the Bible if you were in the West. Nowadays, if you do that, you have to be careful if you're mass marketing because it could be Allah, it could be one of the other many various gods all around the world because of a globalized planet. So one of the reasons why that term of race in that being used that way probably shouldn't and has fallen out of fashion is largely just because things aren't being made mostly for one audience anymore, meaning white people.
yeah,
At least
yeah.
those
And
sorts
that's
of
fine.
things.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, and I agree, right? This is coming, and this is why I say like he's having an argument with D&D from 30 years ago because
Yeah.
there was also to your analogy, there was only like Greyhawk and Forgotten Realms, right? Now we
Right.
have a plethora of different environments, Eberron and Golaron and all tons of others, right? And so and then we do more interesting things with these races and their cultures are different, and so like I think it's in Eberron where the halflings are the nomad ones, and they ride on
Yeah.
dogs and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right? So it's more
The
interesting stuff is
gypsies,
happening, and
basically. Yeah.
yeah. And so this is where like his argument I think starts breaking down in the modern era because we do have more interesting stories. They do different things. And again, it's a factor of culture, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And so that's why taking away the hard coded like evil designation doesn't work anymore for a lot of these
Yep.
races because they're doing more interesting things with them
I
across the
see. I
board.
think it's kind of cool the idea of a species of mortals that are just pure evil. I like that idea. I think you could actually do a lot with that. The problem is in a game setting, it doesn't have. They basically just become enemies. But you could write a pretty cool, and people have done it. Pretty
Yeah.
cool
People have
stories
done it. Sure. Yeah.
where the
Well,
people are
you
just evil.
what's interesting going off what Ben had said there. Do you guys know the etymology of the word race?
Hit me with it.
It comes from the French raza. And we still see it in the other romantic languages today. Matter of fact, if you live in America, I'm sure you hear a lot of Mexicans screaming out La Raza.
Oh yeah.
quite a
Old Eddie
bit.
Guerrero.
Yeah.
Viva la raza.
Viva la raza. And of course, if we were going to translate raza back into English, that would be family. Yeah. But
Yes.
it is interesting the how race has changed in its meaning over the years, over the centuries.
It's become a very much more loaded term than it used to be, that's
Yep,
for sure.
that is true.
There was a time when it was a completely neutral way to just describe differing, usually skin colors, basically, is how we delineated it, but there's obviously more to it than
Yeah, but
that.
we have a word for that. It's called breed.
Yes, but we don't use that because people get all up in their feelings about it. That's what we should call each other, but because of dogs and horses, everybody goes, I'm not a dog! I'm
Yeah,
not calling you a
but
dog, dummy.
eh,
What? I'll call you
yeah.
stupid, but not a dog!
I do have another article that's similar to this. I'm going to get to here in a minute, but I just find it funny that because I'm telling you, my whole life, because I went to school for anthropology, right? My whole
Yes,
life I've heard this stupid race argument, and it's not coming from the anthropologist or even the archaeologist. It's coming out of these psychology majors. And it's
yes.
like, dude, stick to what you freaking know, right? What are you
Well, they're,
talking about?
they're
Because,
psychologists, Chester. They don't know anything.
well, fair enough. But I'm just saying that, we've known and archaeologically for 150 years that race has nothing to do with anything as far as taking actual science out of the ground and comparing it to our oral and written history, right? We know it's culture, and it's always been culture. It's not racial at all. It's cultural. And that's the important thing. It's like if you're in America, for instance, well, I haven't been there forever, but when I was there, I had friends that were of many different races,
Mhm.
technically, but they're all American. Then
Sure.
therefore there's no distinction. I didn't care what color they were, because they weren't anything other than just like me,
Well,
right?
it would take us into a rabbit hole I won't take us down, but that's why my opinion on racism is what it is, that it doesn't really exist.
No, it's
And it's just
culturalism, it's
it's a
tribalism.
convenient,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
convenient way of us describing something that is much more complicated than what it seems.
Sure. Well, anyway, let's move on from Dillweed here. What's his name? We'll just go with Dillweed. Yeah,
Dillweed's a good name for
Dillweed's a
him.
good
Yeah.
name for him. But I mean, why did you waste your time? What the hell is your name? Here it is. Oh,
My God, look at the. I
Whittle.
mean, that is one of the whitest names I've ever
It
seen.
is.
Clayton Whittle.
It is super whittlish. Anyway, let's get on to this next article, which is directly connected to the conversation. Go ahead.
Moon Knight director Mohammed Diab slams Black Adam for casting non-Egyptians.
Okay.
What does? First of all,
Okay.
Mr. Diab,
Okay.
buddy, what does that mean?
Okay, I'm going to tell you what it means. But they just had to mess with the anthropologist, didn't they? Just had
They
to
did.
do
They.
it. They just
I'm
had to
poking the
do it.
bugbear
Poking the
again. Here I
bear.
come.
Well, first of all, sir, Mister Mohammed, sir, you're not Egyptian either. I
Correct.
understand you were born there. I get it. Yeah, but when we're talking about Moon Knight here, we are talking about something that is coming from truly ancient Cometian times, right? I mean,
That's
real way back. We're talking about back when the gods were walking around type of stories, right? We're like, what,
yeah.
20, 30, 40,000 years ago type of stories, right? So, yeah, you're not Egyptian. I know you were born there, but you're not actually Egyptian. So your comment is stupid, Mr. Arab man, because you're not. And he's trying to get his woke points on, Grimlock. He's trying. But he's not paying attention there because yeah, that's not the current zeitgeist answer to that, Mister Muhammad. Because the actual Egyptians, based upon current commentary, is this dude. You get him, Bobby. You get him, Bobby. Don't you take that shit from him, Bobby. You go, you kick his ass, man. You the
Oh,
Egyptian.
Bobby could. Bobby could.
Bobby Lashley would eat that dude. What are you
He
talking
would.
about?
He would. He would. But I mean, this, of course, is also stupid because in ancient Comitia, they were very cosmopolitan. They were very proud of it, actually. They'd even counted the fact that they had 42 different races living
That's right.
in the Comitian kingdoms. But yeah, the reality is if we go back, especially those story times, we know exactly what the gods and stuff look like because they tell us. If you go read those stories, you can go read them. You can read the old stories, right?
Yeah.
You can. They're available. And the old stories told us exactly what the gods looked like. They looked like this. This is for the ladies, by the way. Ooh, you get him. You get him. You tell them ladies.
That is a beautiful man.
He is all sexed up and stuff, man. Look at that. He needs a little bit of oil in there on the nipples, I think. But
Oh, God.
Oh, fuck.
Extreme am I on? The
Getting
hell?
thirsty in here. It's getting thirsty.
it is, dude. It's getting super thirsty. But the thing is, if you go back to the actual old Commission stories and listen to their stories about the gods, this is what the gods look like. They're very clear, right? It's not, there's no misunderstanding in it. Now, of course, if you go back to Commission times, as far as the actual written record and the archaeological evidence can back it up, well, there's all kinds of people, including Bobbies. We had Bobbies there, and you know what?
Lots
We
of them.
also had Mohammeds.
Yep.
They had them too.
Well,
Yeah,
ancient Egypt was basically the New York City of the
it
ancient world.
was. It was.
It was. I mean, there was every type of person lived there. It was
Yeah.
ridiculous, and when you think about it, especially considering how much more difficult it was to travel at the time compared to now, and yet somehow they came from all over the world
They
to live in
did.
Egypt.
They did. And old Jeff here's mentioned the Kushites, or the Ethiopians as we call them today. But yeah, no, I mean that was a cool thing about Egypt, actually. But of course, what he's complaining about is that Dwayne Johnson is not Egyptian, in his
I was
opinion.
gonna say, is he going against like The
He
Rock here?
is. He's
Because
going
I
at it.
don't know who better you could cast to play Black Adam than The Rock.
He's pretty
Like,
much
Yeah,
perfect.
and it's
Yeah.
a little weird because he's the director of Moon Knight, and of course, Mark Spector is not Egyptian either.
Oh, wait a minute. Oops.
Oops.
Whoopsie.
didn't
Whoopsie.
they?
Wait, we got to check with the fact checkers on that one.
Oof.
Somebody get a
Wait,
fact checker.
First of all, Dwayne Johnson is the most awesome, best casting ever possible for Black Adam. So shut the fuck
He
up,
is.
Mohammed.
It's perfect. Literal perfection.
It
Oh,
He
right.
is.
even looks like Black Adam.
He
Like,
does.
what the hell?
Does he look like Black Adam? He's scary like Black Adam.
Yes,
Like,
dude. It's gonna be fucking awesome, dude. I cannot wait. Anyway,
you know,
sorry.
it's gonna be intimidating as fuck, right?
Yeah.
So and it's weird, because this comes up every now and then, right? Like, remember, I think it was like Night at the Museum 2, they criticized Rami Malek for playing an Egyptian prince, saying that,
Yes.
they didn't cast an Egyptian, where Rami actually is Egyptian, right?
Yeah.
So, this is where I'm going to agree with you guys that it gets a little silly sometimes on some of the commentary on this stuff.
Does. Yes.
So,
He is Jewish. You're right, Eric. He is Jewish. Mark is Jewish. Yeah. And no, it's ridiculously stupid, dude. What do you? I mean, Muhammad, shut up, dude. Shut up, Muhammad. Just to make a
Probably
good
just,
Moon Knight. I swear to God, Muhammad, if you, I will frickin' bomb detonate myself on your ass if Moon Knight sucks. I swear to God, Muhammad. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was a little.
How about we just let actors act? How about we
Yeah.
try that one? How about we stop with all the agendas both ways and just find the dudes who look like the dudes that you got the script written for or written about, whatever the script says they look like, because they all say it,
Mm-hmm.
and just let the actors do their job. Can we just please just
Especially
try that
the
for a
Egyptian
few
thing,
years?
though, dude. It's so dumb because
It is.
Egypt, there were even Asians in frickin' Egypt, dude.
Yes.
I mean, you've got to be kidding me. A matter of fact, which pharaoh was it? Ramses or maybe it was his papa? But one of those around that at that age, of that dynastical age, his favorite concubines were two Asian slaves he had gotten. He loved them so much that not only were they buried with him, probably not dead yet, but he actually painted them on the entire wall of his funerary hall in the Valley of the Kings. That's how much he loved his little Asian sex slaves, right? His wife isn't even on the wall. So I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Because
So you're saying
Man.
David Bowie ripped off China Girl from Ramses?
he did. He did. But it's just so stupid, man, because it's like one of the most cosmopolitan empires, nations in history. In history. There were so many people from all over the world, and so many groups, so many cultures were involved in Egypt. What is an Egyptian? I mean, it's like what's an American, for goodness sake, dude?
Yeah, it really was. It was at least that we know of, the world's first real melting pot, quote
It
unquote.
was, yeah. I mean, much more than Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia
Oh
was
yeah,
kind of hard fist, iron fisted about their shit. But Egypt was very open, and of course, Egypt went to hell as soon as the damn, Hittites or Hyksos or whatever, Scythians, what do you want to call them, when they came in and took over, and the Dragon Lord reigns came. That's when shit went to hell. Before that,
yeah.
Egypt, or what? Of course, it wasn't Egypt. Kemet was pretty interesting if you go back and read it. But this is you're dumb, Muhammad, because you're not even Egyptian, dude. Your people came in and raped them people out centuries ago. Shut up, Muhammad, fucker. Anyway, sorry.
I think we
Apologize.
found a trigger on
You
Chester. I think
did.
we might have
Yeah,
triggered.
yeah.
I'm sending
Well,
Bobby. That's all I know. You get him, Bobby.
God
Okay.
damn, I'd be
uh,
scared of Bobby Lashley too.
He
Bobby,
is
the
cool as
worst thing
shit
about
too.
Bobby is he's such a nice guy. I don't know you. You'd
Yeah.
have to give him a real good reason.
You see,
The thing is,
I would love to have Bobby Lashley as like some one of the Sudanese Egyptian kings. Do it, man. Do it.
Yeah,
That would be
yeah,
badass.
e-
Because they
everyone,
did have black pharaohs, by the way.
of course.
They did have. Yeah.
I
Anyway.
mean, everyone talks about how scary Brock Lesnar is, but doesn't Bobby Lashley have a better like win ratio in
Oh
UFC
yeah.
than Lesnar
Oh
has?
yeah,
Yeah,
but
well, not
no
in
one's
UFC, but yeah, in MMA.
no one is as scary as
Bellator.
Brock Lesnar. No,
Yeah,
dude.
I don't know.
Brock's he's a different level. He
That's a
might be the
beast,
next
dude.
evolution of humanity.
Yeah.
He's a freak of nature, and Bobby is too. But Brock's just
Well, Bobby's a
he's
great
impressive.
athlete, is what he is.
Bobby's
Yes,
an amazing athlete. I
Yeah.
mean, the fact that he remains in the shape that he's in and he does like WWE all the time and stuff like that is like crazy,
Yeah.
right? Because like maintaining that definition and that shape is just like ridiculous,
It is
right?
hard. Yeah, it is hard.
Right. It's incredibly hard.
Yeah, but I
Oh, yeah.
mean, and it was kind of like we were talking about. They were complaining that Gal Gadot was going to play Cleopatra, and they were like, they were just lost their goddamn minds and putting all these pictures of these fairly attractive black actresses that could do it. And I'm like, you do realize that Cleopatra the Seventh, which is sort of that's what they were talking about, was a Ptolemy,
yeah,
right?
yeah. She was 100% from Greece.
Yeah,
She
so
was a mutt,
yeah, but
Yeah,
so she
and
would
she was
no,
an ugly
she's a
one at that.
well,
and she
maybe,
was
but
ugly.
she's a Ptolemy, and therefore, Gal Gadot would, you know, not be a bad choice, really.
Not at all. Actually,
Yeah,
she pulled that Greek off very well. I mean, that
she could,
Egyptian off very well.
she could, yeah.
This whole
Well,
thing's so
well,
silly. It's
technically
so
they're
dumb.
Macedonians, but fair enough.
Yeah,
But whatever. Moving on, because you're stupid. We're gonna have a little happy time now. You ready, Ben? We're gonna have happy
Yeah,
time. Happy
I like
time.
that. Make me happy.
look at him. Look at him in all his glory. Nicolas Cage confirms he's paid off his debts,
Yeah.
disses Disney as he promotes, quote, the unbearable weight of massive talent, his new movie, where Nicolas Cage stars as Nick Cage. And I love that. I love everything about
He does star as Nick Cage in this movie. He is playing Nick Cage in Nick Cage.
I
I
mean,
love it so
everyone
much.
says that Nick Cage is crazy. I don't think he is. He couldn't last. He says this in this article. He's like, you can't last as
Yeah.
long as I have in this industry and be nuts. I think he's eccentric, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And that goes a certain degree, but the thing about Nick Cage that I get from the times that I've watched him, and I've watched his career for a very long time, right? I think what he is an artist. He
Yeah.
doesn't want to like compromise his art, right? And so, but he made some poor decisions as people who are flush with cash who don't really know what to do with themselves like do, right? And so he made some poor decisions. So he went on the what they call it, the um there's a term for it, the geezer like action
Ge-
thing.
the Geezer films. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like, Liam Neeson, Bruce Willis, there's a whole
Steven
bunch of them.
Seagal.
Oh God, not even Steven Seagal anymore, right? Because he refuses to do films where he kills anybody. But there's a collection of these guys who are just doing like these horrible B class movies where they basically get paid like $1 million to do the film, and they get them for like a week of filming, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And they just like run through the the script and do all the scenes as fast as possible. and he did that to like pay off his debts and stuff
Yep.
like that. But the thing is like Nick Cage is into his art. He wants to play interesting roles. Pig was an amazing movie, and it
Yeah.
sounded so goofy, right?
Mandy,
There.
Color Out of Space wasn't bad either.
Oh my god, yeah, and that proves the point that he wants to do interesting films, and he does filler films for the budget, but then he does that to make a living, and then he wants to do interesting indie films. And he talks about being done with Disney, and part of that is because Disney represents the corporatism, and like we talked about, the flattening of the market.
Yep.
And he is you read this article, he is the niche market. That's what he loves, is the niche, right? Is he wants to do that stuff like exclusively.
You're killing me, Ben. It's niche.
No, you're both wrong. He's the Nick market. That's right.
Oh, fair enough. We'll take that.
That's right.
But no, you're 100% right, dude. And the good thing about Nick over those other ones you mentioned is every now and then, every 3 or 4, he'll put out a good movie. Yep.
He does.
Yeah.
Isn't that oh, what's that called? The one you just said it. One of the movies that he put out. Wasn't it like
Mandy,
a no. It was
Color
like a
Out of
horror
Space,
movie.
the
Yeah,
Lovecraftian
wasn't
movie.
that a Lovecraftian movie or
It
something?
was. It's a
That's
remake. They've
cool.
done it before.
That's
It's
cool.
a good movie. And I thought it was fun. I think they did a good job. Yeah,
And I guess in that movie they used like magenta light to represent that color
they
because
did.
magenta light doesn't actually exist. Like it's not on the wavelength. It's not on the light spectrum like the other lights. Like the other lights we can see are.
Hmm.
So I just think that's interesting, and I really love Nick Cage. I'm glad he's going to get. It looks like he's going to get a little bit of a career renaissance here. Maybe he'll get back to do something really big or something
Some
really
cool
cool.
stuff.
This
Yeah.
looks absolutely
And
hilarious,
no, it
and
does.
the
Yeah.
fact that Cage knows that he's kind of a living meme and is totally okay with that is even better. I love I love me some Nick Cage. I've always loved Nick Cage. I've never understood the hate he gets from some people where they just can't stand him. I think he might not maybe he's not the best actor in the world, but he's so entertaining. He's so damn entertaining. And almost every movie I've ever seen him in he is. He's one of those guys who he just has that factor about him, and he can just entertain you if you put him in some kind of role. He'll find a way to make it interesting. And some of
Yeah.
his roles have been legendary, and some of them, been great. But I've never seen him do bad in a movie personally. But I haven't seen all his movies either, so I'm sure there's got to be one out there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Brett, don't you be drawn astray by this bad old Ben. Don't you do it. What are you doing? But yeah, no, this is awesome news. Congratulations. He's only owns 2 castles. Maybe now he'll buy a third one. Yeah. But I'm glad to see he's out of debt because he's been dealing with that for quite a while. Yeah. I
That's
like
good.
Nick Cage. I mean, why?
Me
What's
too.
not to like?
He
Yeah.
actually, as eccentric as he comes off, he seems like one of the most normal people in Hollywood, which is not really an endorsement of him.
He has a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex head skull in one of his
So does
castles.
Vince McMahon, and would you say Vince McMahon is weird?
Yes, he's eccentric
Yes.
as hell. Yeah. But all right, let's move on. I just thought it was fun. Congratulations to Mr. Cage.
Listen, if you
Uh,
had Nick Cage money, you'd have a T-Rex skull too. I don't even want to hear you lie to me right now and say you want
that's fair. That's fair. I
it.
would. I'd actually buy a temple from one of them poor Middle Eastern countries and just transport it.
I like that.
Yeah. This is just tearing my guts out.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Morbius reviews, they have apparently started to trickle in, and the critics are reportedly disappointed by the Marvel movie. Now, the question here
Good.
is,
I don't give
Justin,
a fuck about the critics. Good.
exactly, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Because
Yeah.
sometimes they're like, oh, this movie's terrible, blah, 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 and then you go watch it, you're like, what the hell, that was awesome. That does happen. It's
It
happened to me
does.
multiple
It
times.
does. And we have to wait a week to find out. Not even a week, but this weekend. However, the way they're critiquing it makes me really worried because they're not screaming about not enough diversity or some of the stuff we get out of those Nazi, not no Nazi noisemakers. But that's not the critique we're getting. It's just the CG's really bad. It's got tons of plot holes. It doesn't make sense. The critiques we're getting are very real critiques, not opinion. So I don't know. We have to, of course, we have to wait. Never listen to what the critics say. That's always a smart thing to do. But oh, I'm worried, dude. I'm so looking forward to this movie, man. I really want a cool Morbius movie, dude. And the trailer looks awesome. I'm like, oh my god.
Well, I'll say this about the plot holes. These are the same people that also said Endgame was a great movie. So,
Nah,
That's
fair enough.
true.
That's fair
It's
enough.
got a
Yeah,
good point.
that's a great movie.
Shut
so,
up,
so
Ben.
they,
What did I
I
tell you?
mean, if we want to have that fight, we can have that fight. But I'm going to stand by that. I got so we can have an entire episode where we just just slap each other around on Endgame. I'm happy to do that.
But I mean, come on, Ben. You're a comic book guy.
Um,
Wouldn't you love to have a great Morbius movie, man?
course, yeah. I mean, I think Morbius is a good franchise and is deserving because he's a character that exists sort of in the gray,
Yeah.
and we often lack characters who exist in the gray. I mean, that was one of the fun things about the Punisher series on Netflix is that he was a character that existed in the gray, right? That he was the anti-hero, he killed and stuff like that. I love that like dialogue between him and Daredevil on the rooftops as they're like, kind of fencing
Yeah,
their ideology and stuff like
that's
that. And
true.
that's directly from the comics.
Yeah.
And so Morbius kind of falls in that level. But here's some of the problems that I foresee, and we didn't discuss it on this platform, but it's going to be PG-13, which is tough for this type of a
That's true.
product, right? I mean, and now there's a lot of play in that. Like technically, the Batman was a PG-13 movie, which by all intents and purposes, like like is a rated R film. Like they bribe somebody or whoever, but like that is not a PG-13 movie at pure the rating whatsoever. Um, the other problem they're going to have is they're doing sort of a classic origin story, which I think is tough to do because we've already seen the origin story play out so many times from so many other Marvel properties. I kind of would have preferred they didn't do a straightforward origin film like they're doing. Instead,
Mm,
have him sort of already in function and maybe do flashbacks where appropriate to kind of fill in some of the gaps. But and then I anticipate there's going like all these Marvel movies, a lot of these have, unless they're done really well, they tend to have third act problems, right? Getting to the final, fight with the bad
that
guy
is true.
it becomes a CGI mess. And so my point is it's like there's a lot of extenuating circumstances that if they aren't handled correctly, it could make it a bit of a disaster. We'll see. I have hope like everyone else. My thing is like there's no excuse, right? They've had over a year extra to like do test screenings, do reshoots if they needed to really firm it up. And so they, because the movie's been delayed so much because of COVID. So if it is a disaster, they have nobody to blame but themselves
Yeah,
because they've had plenty of opportunity to go back to the drawing board and correct things where they needed to.
yeah. And it's such an easy story to do. The dude's got a sickness. He wants to try to cure himself, and he fucks it up. I mean, it's that simple, right?
But
It's
so
like
largely the problem
20%
is,
of Spider-Man's villains right there.
yeah,
Yeah,
Sony keeps trying to, kind of replicate the Marvel like formula, but they're not as good as Marvel is at doing it,
clearly.
right?
Yeah,
And so, Venom has its problems. It has some fun spots, but it also, you know,
Yeah.
again, another one that he's literally like biting people's heads off, but we're still like pretending this is a PG-13 film. It's like really dumb, right?
yeah,
And so I wish more people would like just curve into like the Deadpool model and just be like, you know what? This is an adult property. We're gonna go for the R rating and let it be hard R, right?
yeah,
And let it be kind of crazy, because then people will enjoy it a lot more. And again, this is the theme of this whole conversation we're having.
yeah. I
It's
know.
all to flatten the market, right? They want to get the broadest market possible, and in doing so, they kind of alienate a lot of the market that would enjoy it if it
Yep.
was built more for them.
Right. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean,
Well,
another
see,
good. Go ahead, Grimlock.
I was gonna say I agree with you on a lot of the points because Morbius, amongst Marvel characters, he's a rather obscure character. I look at him as part of that 70s supernatural lineup that
Sure.
for whatever reason Marvel just fucking abandoned and didn't come back to with any kind of consistency. Um, he's an obscure character even by Marvel's
Oh, absolutely.
standards. Like
I think it was
me,
Jim.
I'm a fan of him.
I think that
I
was
got
Jim Shooter that did that. But anyway, go ahead.
yeah. I mean, I got the omnibuses, I got the figures. I just reserved the Mezco one. So I want Morbius to be
Mm.
good, but as a more obscure character, because Marvel, to their detriment, has made it so every movie is supposed to be on this grandiose scale where smaller characters are now have to be put into these fits where they really don't belong.
Yeah.
So as they seem like a bigger deal than they are. This is one of the reasons Shang-Chi failed. Um, it's Morbius probably would have fit better if he was introduced in the Blade movie,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
because Sony wants to hold on to these rights, because let's be honest, that's the reason this movie was made.
Sure.
As much as I'm glad to see a Morbius movie, that's the reason it's being made, is so that they can keep the rights to him. Um,
Yeah. Fair enough. It could have been really
it's
cool though, and it might be. We have to wait
I,
and see.
I
Yeah.
I hope it is, but like you said, there could be some problems with it, and because the expectation is you're good, they're gonna want to see him in the bigger picture. He should be like Marvel Knights,
Mm-hmm.
like when they was doing the Marvel Knights line, where
Yep.
you could go a little bit darker. But and then also going with the Marvel Knights and defending that, the critics also said the Punisher movies is bad, and most people I know that watch those movies thoroughly enjoyed those movies.
Yeah, they
Especially
So
didn't like
Warzone.
300 very much either.
Yeah.
yeah,
But I mean, good example. Also with Blade, the new actor. I can't remember his name. I like him though. I'm looking forward to seeing what he.
Marshala Ali.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, he's a bit older than I thought they were going to go for Blade because they tend to like actors who have about 10 years or more. And isn't he already 50 or
Yeah,
something?
but they tell me black don't
Yeah,
crack. So,
yeah,
uh,
yeah, but I'm with Ben. I don't know what it is with Marvel, why they won't. If you're gonna make franchises out of this, get some young guys, give them an
yeah, that's
opportunity.
fair. That's fair. I am looking
Opportunity of a
forward to.
lifetime where they can do it.
I am looking forward to see what he does though. He's a good actor, dude. He's straight
He's a
up.
great actor.
Yeah,
I love
Yeah.
him, and I'm not mad that he's like going to be Blade. I think that's great. Yeah, he's 48, right? 48 and playing Blade. We
that makes the argument weaker about Wesley Snipes being too old, don't it?
It does, and the problem you got to have is can he pull off the action like Wesley? I mean, Jesus, right? I
Can
mean,
he pull off the cool factor like Wesley? Because
Well,
I
he
he
think he
needs
he
to
can do
be
really
that. I think he can do
he
that.
needs to be an athlete, and Wesley is an athlete, right? He's a very
He
athletic
is.
man,
He's
which he
actually
still is
quite a
in
good
crazy
martial artist.
shape.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
there's tons of athletic actors you can find, but I'm with Grimlock. Like, I think they needed to go a little bit younger because I mean, Marvel wants to use these guys for like 10 years potentially, right? And again, Ali is a great actor. I'm not going to like argue with that whatsoever, but I'm just
Hmm.
kind of shocked that they went for somebody who's
yeah.
48.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
for someone who's supposed to play like, I don't know. It just it was weird casting to me is all.
when he
So
Yeah.
was in I've said this on here before. When he was in Battle Angel Alita,
right.
and there's a scene where he's sitting in a limo, and I think it's her, sees him sitting in there in like kind of like the shadow and these sunglasses. And I said to my wife, I said, "Holy crap, he looks like Blade." This was before he was cast to be Blade, and then like
Yeah.
a month later, they decided that he was going to be Blade. I was like, "Ah, I called it." He has the look, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
voice of his is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe they're gonna do. I don't know. We don't. I have no idea what the plans are for this Blade movie, but they might not start at the beginning with Blade, and they might
I
start that
hope
he's been a
not.
vampire hunter for a while,
Yeah.
and just let him be start as an older character, because I don't think we necessarily need to see the beginning, at least
No.
not as the main
Just some like
storyline.
10-second
I
flashback maybe.
I
Yeah.
want
Uh,
to see Blade going full Tomb of Dracula up in that
Oh
thing. That's what
yeah,
I want.
dude, that'd be cool. But we of course we have to wait and see with the Morbius thing. We got to see for ourselves, but it is disappointing to hear it, unfortunately. But we do got to keep in mind how these people are reacting, what they're reacting to. For instance, Moon Knight. In the trailer that dropped, there's a lot of people that are playing on the idea that he's. I think he's in the Simon character. I don't know where his brain is in that scene, but there's a lady who's leading him, and he's very timid. Type of character that he's in that mindset, and she's leading through and she's kicking everyone's ass, and yay woman, little teeny lady kicking as everyone ass, and they're like, this is the switch, the bait and switch they're doing on you. Moon Knight's not going to be the main thing.
I
Now,
hope not.
well, hold on. Now, hold on. This is my point. Well, we never know until we see it. However, we've seen other trailer teaser bits, and he's absolutely brutally kicking ass. You know,
Yeah.
Isaac,
Yeah.
what's his name? Oscar Isaacs,
Oscar Isaac.
right?
Yep.
So yeah, but that's the psychology of his brain at that time, and of course they have to say "yay woman" in there somewhere because it's freaking Disney. But I mean,
Yeah.
we've
Well,
seen from other stuff that he's freaking Moon Knight.
no, see, that's one thing, me and Thunder House talked about before. There was a time where that scene wouldn't have bothered us.
That's right. That's right.
But now, because they've gone out of their way with that to like do that, and it gets to the point where, yes, there are some highly trained, um, I guess you could say skilled women in combat that can handle that. But if you're gonna do that, could you at least bring in an established character and a character that I could believe like would be whooping that kind of ass? Like, I don't know
Sure.
if you could bring her in because I
But
don't know where she would fit in Moon Knight's like universe, for example. Like, if that was Silver Sable just kicking ass like that,
yeah,
I'm like, okay, it's
sure.
Silver
Yeah.
Sable.
But here the thing, I think the
Holy
first thing you
shit.
said is the most important thing, though. Back in the day, if we saw a lady that was brought into some action thing and she was doing a thing, we wouldn't really think much of it. We may have a chuckle. But these
Yeah,
days, everyone's so sensitive, dude.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Can
that's
I
what
can I
happens when you
can I
constantly poke
interrupt
your
for
nerve,
just a moment?
make it worse.
Yeah,
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sure.
Oscar news. Will Smith just jumped on stage and slapped Chris Rock.
What?
good.
What?
Why?
I'm.
So apparently he made some G.I. Jane joke pointed at his wife, and Will Smith did not take kindly to it. So he jumped on stage. Chris Rock was on there, slapped him, went back down, sat down, and told him to keep his wife's name out of his fucking mouth.
Wait a minute, Chester. I might get you in trouble, but somebody tell Will Smith to sit his little sad ass, soft ass nigga ass down because your wife on TV and was openly talking about
Cucking
fucking
you.
other men, how she wishes Tupac was still alive so she could suck his dick,
Yes.
Yes.
and this is the point where you want to put hands on somebody?
Yeah, that is ridiculous. He
If,
got cucked out so
if
hard.
that was I'm already giving it early. The Nigga Please Award for 2022 is going to Will Smith. Take it. It's the only award you're probably getting this
Do you
year.
have that award? I'm not aware. I'm not
He
part of
does.
the urbane culture.
I mean, seriously?
He
That's
sounds
gotta
like
be
an
staged.
Elseworlds Batman villain.
That's gotta be staged. Don't tell me what Vince McMahon is sitting back in Gorilla at the Oscars. That sounds staged as fuck.
I'm looking at the footage, and everyone's like awkward as hell. Chris Rock doesn't look like he knows what he's gonna do. It's I don't know. It
Oh, Chris
looks
Rock ain't.
And they ain't Andy
Chris Rock ain't
Kaufman
fighting
either.
nobody.
They ain't Andy
yeah,
Chris
Kaufman.
Rock ain't.
not Andy Kaufman. Yeah, that's you're exactly correct. Right? You know.
Yeah.
Chris Rock ain't fighting nobody. That's probably
All right,
why
fine.
Will
I'll
did
go
it. He went and
find
picked
it.
the one.
Fine.
Picked
God. All
the
right.
one black guy in Hollywood he knew wouldn't fight
The
back.
Jingle Channel. Yeah, it's nuts. He yeah, it's just crazy.
Oh wow, this got up quick. Holy shit, this got up quick. All right, let's find it here. Let me go into videos. I suppose. No.
No,
No
it's not there yet. Yeah.
Oprah. Hi.
This man.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
Nick,
Come on,
have you
load, you dumb
Have you
thing.
watched some of that Will Smith stuff on YouTube? He's going through some weird times.
Yes, realize. Wait until you're in your 50s to realize you're not a much of a masculine man.
Why does Chris Rock look like who was the you remember Sanford and Sons? There was the dude that would come around always looking for free handouts. What was his name?
I'm gonna say
Davey
that looks
Jones, I know who
staged.
you're talking about.
Keep playing it because he slaps him, then he goes back and he starts like yelling at him. Starts yelling at him from
what
the
was
seats.
his name? Damn it, Sam! Because Chris Rock's really starting to look like him.
Lamont Jordan.
Yeah. Look at him. Oh, they're cutting the dialogue. Oh no, they're not showing it because he cusses. Because ABC, who did this? Well, how do I get out of this? I guess I do like that probably. There we go. Okay, I got to go find one that's got some balls. Page 6, you suck.
Well, here's what's really kind of scary for old Will.
Oh, there we go.
So Will's like quite a bit bigger than Chris, and Chris didn't even barely flinch at that hit.
I'm telling you, I'm
Will, you
looking
a
at this hit
bitch.
now. I'm thinking,
If that's the hardest Will Smith can smack a dude, Will, you a bitch. Because Chris ain't a big dude. He's a very skinny man.
Huh? I don't know. What do you guys think? Looking at this, do you think this is staged?
No, I think it's
um,
100% real. Will Smith is going through like a midlife crisis right now and like doesn't know what to do with himself, right? I think
divorce your whole wife. That's what you could do.
Yes,
That'd be a start.
that's what he should be doing because she cucked the hell out of him and she didn't even apologize for it. Um, yeah, no, that
Sat there
was
crying like a bitch on national TV,
yeah.
and you got the nerve to slap the
どうなんでしょうか。
Oh, wow! Wow! Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
ウィル・スミスにやられました。
Wow, dude! It was a G.I. Jane joke.
G.I. ジェーンのジョークだったんです。
I'm going to,
Jesus Christ.
okay? Okay.
Yeah, no, that's real. That's 100%
that's
real.
real. Yeah, I told you, it's 100% real. Like, you know,
That is a man in crisis. Holy shit!
Yeah,
well,
no,
because like
When
Will
you
Smith had
when
that
it
series, he's trying to do too much, right? You know, he's trying to write those memoirs. He did that YouTube series about losing weight, and he like quit in the middle of the series and stuff. Like
yeah,
he's going through a
we
midlife
got the
crisis.
big. I heard the early working title for his memoirs is "I Am Cuck."
Oh Jesus. Yeah, no, that was a sad thing though. Come on, that we all thought that was pretty sad what she did to him like that. That's not cool, right? I
It's
understand.
sad that he still got
Married
her,
though?
and he still.
Did
Well, they were separated and all that. Fine, that's fine. But it's not the problem that it happened and they figured out whatever they figured out privately. That's their business. She made it public. That's the issue.
But not just that. This woman got on national television and talk about how she
I know.
wish her fantasy dick was still alive because she'd be fucking no.
I know, dude. It was horrible.
But by the time she'd have got off that stage, the divorce papers would have been filed.
Yeah, it's sad, and my goodness though, what's going to happen with that? Because that looks 100% real. I agree, Ben.
Oh
That's a
my God, this
lawsuit.
is the best.
Well, that's
The
a
internet's
minimum lawsuit.
undefeated.
He could be
Hey, I gotta
arrested.
share.
It's
I gotta
technically
share this.
battery.
I have to share this. Chris Rock's got a stronger chin than Deontay Wilder.
What?
oh,
That's
Oh
fair.
my!
Holy shit. Well, at least the Oscars did something right. I don't know. Okay. Let's move on to my. Do I have time? Probably not. I did have one story here. Just kind of, it looks like CD Project Red is coming out with a new Witcher game. Yay!
And they wonder why they wouldn't let black people host the Oscars. This is why you don't let black people host the Oscars.
God.
This
Grimlock.
Fair. Yeah,
I'm
fair
just
enough, I
saying
guess.
it.
Uh, like I said, I am not a member of the Urbane Society. I do not know such things. Uh, anyway, well, that was a good way to end the show, I guess. Chris Rock getting slapped, but here's the thing, though: how many people wanted to slap Chris Rock over the years, though?
A lot of sensitive people.
I'm sure.
We just saw one.
It's a comedian, though. Let him do his thing. And I doubt it was even could he. I mean, it's the Oscars. There was no way Chris could have been that harsh.
Well, I mean, but like the reality is that Chris is always like, I don't want to say gone harsh on the Oscars, but he's always kept it real, I guess, right? Like, the year that I think they were missing a what was it, a black actor to be nominated for like best actor, best actress, right? And there's some hoopla about it, and he was the host, and he addressed it in the beginning of it, right? And there was this like famous thing he said at the end where he's like, and I'll see you all at the oh god the awards. What was the anyways? He's done this before, and I think he's good. He kind of keeps things spicy in a way that people like enjoy, and add some flair and add some reality to the Oscar stuff, right? So
Sure.
yeah, he's gonna like I don't know. I mean, if you're gonna be that sensitive and there's gonna be like spicier comedians on there, like you need to either not go or grow a thicker skin. And it's
Yeah.
like, but
Thank
the
God Ricky
joke
Gervais wasn't there. My God.
I was
oh
showing my
yeah,
wife
no
the
kidding.
video. That's why I was muted.
But like he wasn't even going that hard on Jada. Like he made a G.I. Jane reference about her shaving her head. He didn't make like a cuck joke like you guys have been doing. Like if that was the case, I could understand him having a reaction. But like, I'm sorry, but that's free reign. At
Well,
that.
it's on his sleeve, right? Anything about his
I
wife is on his sleeve. Yeah.
the only positive thing about this video, I would send this to half the guys at the WWE to go, this is how you sell a hit, kids.
You throw a slap right there.
You see what
Man,
Chris did? That's a
You know what?
song.
in fairness to Chris, from what I saw anyway, he handled it with class.
He
He
did.
did.
Yeah.
I think
Because
that's
a lot of men, that'd have been a fight. You walk up here on national TV and hit me in the face, you ain't walking away, motherfucker. You're about to get something.
He even
would-
said
he would- he-
Oscar moment. Yeah.
He,
Yeah.
he wouldn't have done that to Samuel L. Jackson. I'm just saying.
No, God.
Oh well, no, wait a minute. Can we be honest for a moment? Samuel's not doing anything. Samuel's like 70. Like, what's Samuel going to do now?
He still wouldn't have done it.
Well,
I-
right,
I-
he wouldn't dare to do it. But young Samuel Jackson, no.
No, I
No,
don't agree with that. No,
Oh.
but like, I think the only time I've seen a classier move was when like they threw eggs at Arnold Schwarzenegger while he was campaigning for governor, and then all he did was at the conference or the podium say like, "Where's my bacon?" Right? Like that dude owes me bacon.
That's clever. Yeah. I should have brought Bobby Lashley back up.
Oh my God, he would have done that to Bobby Lashley. He would have been a spot on the
Chris
ground.
comes out later,
True.
Bobby just standing next to him, like, I'm making jokes about everybody now.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
Would've
Yeah,
gotten
put
close enough to do
put
to
that
Bobby.
bitch on my knee. Yeah, that's
He would have. Bobby would have put his boot in his chest and kicked him across the freaking auditorium.
Oh man.
Well, that's man. I get it, and
That's an
Will's
interesting
gonna.
way to end the show.
It is interesting, and
Same with
Will's
Will,
gonna
though.
Will's gonna have a little pushback on that, I am sure. But dude, Will,
He gets arrested.
divorce that woman and get on with your life, dude, because
Yeah.
she's nothing but a hole for you. You didn't do a good job with your kids. They're absolutely train wrecks. Move on. Don't marry again, and just be Will Smith, please, because you clearly don't do the daddy thing very well. Anyway,
The whole family man situation
No.
isn't for him.
no,
Yeah.
it is not.
I just it's a real shame to watch Will Smith have this breakdown because he like Ben's been saying he's been having just a straight up breakdown. And for me personally, Will was my guy when I was
Will's awesome. Yeah.
when I was younger, when I was like I don't know, like 12 or whatever, right around his peak. I loved Will Smith. I would watch anything Will Smith immediately. It wasn't even a question. It was guaranteed I'd watch it, even if it was crap like Wild Wild West.
That was a good movie. You shut up.
Oh, jeez. And it's just a shame to watch. Some people can age gracefully, and just some people can't, apparently. And he does have a lodestone around his neck with that woman that he either is incapable of fixing that relationship or unwilling, but he needs to get out of it. Everybody knows it. Like, it's so unbelievably toxic, and he's got the money and the means. He needs to just get out of it and move on with his
He
life.
needs to talk to Oprah again.
Look what I posted in general chat. Already the internet is filling up with memes about this.
Well, that's why the stage thing came up, because the Oscars don't get any attention.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they're getting some attention tonight.
I guess so. Black on
They
black
should
crime
have
at the
it.
Oscars. Get him, Captain Canada. Oh no! All right,
No.
we got to get out of here. I got to get rolling. I got work to do.
All
But
right.
anyway, guys, thank you all very much for coming in. Good conversations today. Some quite clinical, other ones not. But nevertheless, you got anything you want to say, Ben or Grimlock?
After just watching that buffoonery happen, I don't know what to say. I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any words of wisdom you can apply to that. Maybe Thundaro has a nugget for
Maybe,
us.
maybe.
Maybe. Maybe I do. Hang on, let me get to it. Go ahead, somebody else. I do have one, actually, a perfect one.
Got any closing comments, Ben? You want to say goodbye to the folks?
Yeah, let me just say, in parting, I want this to be a good example. Us as a community, this community here, Thundaro, Grimlock, Chet, myself, where people with differing opinions and things can come together and have constructive, conversations.
Sure.
If you get down to the weeds of it, Thundaro and I have very different opinions of things. We agree on the sources of problems, and we often agree on several other things, but we'll disagree slightly on, solutions. But I think that we are having very conductive and conducive conversations, and I think we need to do that more of that in society, and that's where we're kind of straying away from. And so that's what I appreciate about this and what we do here. And let's have that kind of go out into the ether for everyone to try and not think the worst of everyone and have, constructive conversations.
Yes, but you still have one phrase left to say with that.
Uh-oh.
Niche?
No,
Just trying to tweak you at this point.
Chester's always right.
That Thundaro's always right. That's right. That's how that sentence ended. Good job. All right, I actually have three. I'm going to do the two short ones together because they're kind of the same thing, and they work perfectly for our boy Will. Because I think our boy Will could if he ever heard it, he could really use it. And I've done it on here before. It's real simple. Hating yourself is a low fate. It's a life lived dead. Life matters through love. If that be so, why does loving yourself not factor in? It ought to. You're not capable of expressing for others for something you do not express for yourself.
Hmm.
Will, get rid of that woman. Please. That's it.
Sweet. Well, namaste. Later, everybody.